Councillor Jenny Harrison.
I'd like to ask my dear friend, Reverend Jean Hurlston, and my chaplain to say prayers. Thank you.
Nearby to help me to put the scene together, and as we did, there were a boisterous team of kids who were managing to get an interesting comment out of everything that we did. One said, "It looks like a rabbit hutch, miss. All that hay, it stinks. And is that Joseph who went with Mary? He looks old enough to be a dad. Why did you put Mary over there at the back?" one said. "Because if she's just had a baby, she'd be keeping her eyes on him, so put her over there." And the chatter went on. "The king looks a bit black, and that one looks really light-skinned. And why is Jesus white with blonde hair?" There was so much laughter as well, as one of them moved Joseph and his arm fell off. They looked at my face to see my reaction, and then they groaned, because I said, "No arm." Thought I'd just have to glue it on later. And so as the conversation went on, we had a real interactive crib placing session. And I was actually thinking, if I'd done it all myself, nothing would have been broken, and the figures would have been kept pristine. But then, there wouldn't have been much of a learning experience for any of us. And let's face it, life is not neat. The whole thing got the students engaging with the stories, asking questions, who, why, and what does it all mean? Many of the Christmas cards that we receive or send will make the crib scene shiny. But then the reality of the birth of Jesus will have actually been pretty chaotic and fraught. And yes, it probably did stink to high heaven. Mary would have been a young girl in those days, in that culture, of probably about 14, and Joseph was probably twice her age. So Jesus was born without a proper home, and the birth, ladies, no gas and air. The family had to depend on faith alone to get by, to get through the difficult times. The parents must have been terrified for their lives and for the life of their child. So in a way, it was rather appropriate that Joseph broke his arm in the messiness of the college crib, because that made the scene even more realistic for the world that we live in today. So as we reflect on the crib scene, don't see Jesus coming into a perfect world, but see him coming into a broken world. As a refugee with a less than perfect human family, an unmarried mother and a dad who was at least unsure of his status. It was a scary scene, a frightening scheme that each of us should try to empathise with. So let us just ponder or pray. Oh God, the events around the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem still resonate with us today. We pray and hope for the skills that we need to plan services, especially for those families who are homeless, who are troubled and who are unsettled, who are refugees, asylum seekers, and who simply long to do what's best for their children. God, help us to remember our own brokenness, our own vulnerability, and our own imperfections. Keep reminding us of the occasions when the gift of kindness made a difference to us, or when the intervention of one person made an impact on our lives. Give to each of us here the power to serve the people of Oldham in all humility and grace. Amen. Members wish to remove their jackets, please do so. May I remind members and members of the public that the meeting will be streamed live on the webcast from the council's website. Please be seated.
Sorry, I'd switched off, but take your jackets off. Oh, thank you, Councillor Shaw. So we turn to our agenda. Item 1, apologies. I've received apologies for absence from councillors Marie Bashforth, Steve Bashforth, Briggs, Feed Hussain, Iqbal Kenyon, Malik Mushtaq, Tor, Stretton, Sharp and Shuttleworth. Does anybody know of any further apologies? Thank you. Item 2, the minutes of the last meeting on the 3rd of November. Is council agreed that the council minutes from the meeting held on 3rd of November 2021 be agreed as a correct record?
Can I raise a point of order? The members of the public, we can't hear. With these screens here, it's very, very difficult to hear. Could you come closer to the mic so we, the public, can hear what you're actually saying? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, is that better, Mr. Bates?
No. Sorry, Councillor
Well,
Harrison.
that's the best I can do, sorry.
Can't hear it, unless these are out. I don't know. Can you hear? No, and there's a speaker up there as well.
I've brought the microphone nearer. Is that better?
That's all right, Councillor Harrison.
Okay. We are back in the council chamber for the first time in, I think it's 2 years, so we do need to be aware of any little things that crop up, so thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members in respect of matters to be determined by the council at this meeting? I've already had notice from Councillors C. Gloucester, H. Gloucester. They have a non-registerable interest, and Councillor Gary and Wilkinson have a disclosable pecuniary interest in item 8D by virtue of employment or pension with Greater Manchester Police. Are there any other declarations? Councillor Hoban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pecuniary interest in agenda item 9, motion number 1, by virtue of the fact that I'm employed by Stagecoach.
Thank you. Any further declarations? Okay, thank you very much. Item 4. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Do you know, I'm really low down. I don't know. Can we raise these seats? Sorry, Councillor board member of Myocare. Thank you very much. Councillor Hamblett.
Same regarding Myocare, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is that everybody? Okay, thank you. Item 4, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 5, communications. There are no communications. Item 6, petitions. There are no petitions for council to note. So we move to item 7. I'm very pleased to say we've got members of our Youth Council and our Youth Mayor here tonight, and they are bringing a motion to us. I call on Tia to move and Elijah to second the Youth Council motion. Thank you. Tia Henderson.
Can everyone hear me now? Apologies. Good evening and thank you for hearing our motion tonight. My name is Tia and I'm the Youth Mayor of Oldham.
And my name is Aaliyah and I am the Greater Manchester Youth Combined Authority Rep for Oldham.
Tonight our motion again is on mental health of Oldham's young people. Even before the pandemic, young people have been letting us know that mental health is one of, if not the biggest issue facing them today. From 2015 to 2019, mental health has been on every Make Your Mark ballot, which is a UK-wide consultation of 11 to 18-year-olds. And each year, it has been one of the top 5 issues that young people wanted to see changed. In that time, this one topic received nearly 9,100 votes, which constitutes to approximately 13% of all votes cast over the 5 years.
After each of these results, we would carry out research as to why it was getting so many votes. Young people, year on year, would tell us it was to do with stigma around mental health, awareness around the topic, support available, waiting times for that support, and the quality of the support when it was received. Obviously, in 2020, the pandemic hit, and although alleviated a little at the start because we didn't have the anxiety of going to school, more stress and strain was put on our mental health. This meant that when mental health appeared on the Make Your Mark ballot again, it was voted the second highest issue with 1,250 votes of the 8,700 cast. To qualify why this was the case, we took part in a little desktop research and consulted again with Oldham's young people.
Death of loved ones and fear of catching the virus were a concern, but the majority of issues appeared to be related to isolation due to lockdowns and digital exclusion, loss of employment for parents or the young person themselves, maybe leading to homelessness, and the stress, anxiety and pressure caused by having to catch up at school. On top of this, we found BBC articles related to the increase in divorce, which increased of 122% in divorce inquiries and 34% in divorce agreements, and of domestic abuse with a 12% increase in domestic abuse cases referred to support services. Both of these had a knock-on effect for young people's mental health.
Research by the Children's Society showed that 1 in 6 5 to 16-year-olds have a mental health problem, and a rise in 50% over the last 3 years. They have also found that 55% of 16 to 25-year-olds have talked to their GP about mental health issues. What is more worrying, though, is that the same survey suggests that 75% of young people with mental health problems are not getting the help they need, and that 34% of those people referred to the NHS services are not accepted.
In July of this year, Oldham Youth Service carried out an online mental health conference. The findings from this event again showed that young people still had the same issues with mental health services as they did in the years before COVID. The stigma around poor mental health was still there, and there was an issue around accessing support outside of school. The people within the conference knew that school was a place they could access support, but didn't feel that they could, due to what their friends and teachers might think of them. Trust was a major barrier too, with young people not sure if teachers would talk about their issues to other staff in school or parents, and not wanting to access online support as they didn't know the other person on the other end.
When you combine the numbers of young people struggling with their mental health with the fact that young people appear unlikely to access school or college mental health hubs due to the stigma and trust issues, we feel more needs to be done outside of the school environment. We recognise that there has been a significant investment made to the mental health services in the UK. Back in 2016, the budget for mental health support was £4.5 billion a year, and this rose to £10.5 billion in 2021. However, we believe only 6.7% of that is to be spent on children's mental health services, with statistics showing that 50% of mental health problems start by the age of 14 and 75% of mental health problems start before the age of 24, and we feel this needs to change to a more proactive model.
In March of this year, the government announced that £40 million will be put aside to address the impact of COVID on young people's mental health, and £79 million to help young people in their community. In a UK Parliament article announcing the £79 million spend, the money is to be used to increase the number of mental health support teams in schools and colleges from 59 to 400 by April 2023, supporting nearly 3 million children. As well as this, the money will allow around 22,500 more children and young people to access community mental health services and 2,000 more children and young people to access eating disorder services.
In total, this money would seem to benefit just over 3 million children and young people. We couldn't find out what age bracket that consists of, but taking the UK's 11 to 18 population of 6.2 million, this is support for less than half the young people in the UK, even less if that number includes primary-aged children. The UK Parliament article, in fact, states that the 400 mental health support teams would only cover 35% of the country, which we feel just isn't good enough. That combined with the fact that the teams would be based in schools and the stigma and trust issues we mentioned earlier around accessing school-based support, we feel more needs to be done.
We would like to propose that Oldham Council resolves to ask the Chief Executive to write to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, the Right Honourable Sajid Javid MP, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak MP, and to the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Boris Johnson MP, to express the concerns of the young people of Oldham and to seek an adequate share of the £79 million set aside for mental health care to meet the needs of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Youth Council for bringing this important issue to our meeting tonight. And I would like to take this opportunity to move a formal motion. Tonight we have been presented with some very stark figures. We have also been told that Make Your Mark ballot identified mental health as a major concern for young people. While mental health was always an issue, COVID has amplified the problem. Young people have had to cope with many issues around education, employment, social engagement, and the impact of COVID on family life, just to name a few. And this is why the issue is more important now than ever before. Please support the motion and make sure that the message gets through to central government. And I would just like again to thank the youth councillors for the eloquent way they have told the story tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Hamblett, please. Sorry, is it Councillor Gloucester? Councillor Hazel Gloucester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry.
I'd like to thank the Youth Council for bringing this to the full council meeting this evening and commend them for this action. I think we're all very aware that mental health is a significant issue that we are currently facing, and that it has been brought to the fore, particularly due to the pandemic. However, this is not a new issue. It has been ongoing for years. The situation in schools for helping these young people is absolutely desperate. Trying to refer individuals is an onerous task, and many do not meet the strict criteria to obtain the support that they need, and this is actually due to funding. This really does need to change. We need to ensure we receive our fair share of the 79 million that has been allocated, and I therefore fully support and second this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Youth Mayor. I suspect that I'm not alone in observing that after months of silence, when the question of reducing the Youth Council's allotted time had been raised, we now have a motion before us, the first time, I think, since I joined the Council in May. However, as this is the season of goodwill, I will defer to the view that this is probably a coincidence and a welcome one. I am pleased to see that there is recognition that the budget for mental health support has risen by £6 billion in the last 5 years, and I commend the accomplished presentation itself. What is sadly disappointing is that the motion itself is clearly an officer-written piece, is predictively biased and anti-government, and sadly does not warrant more positive and comments and support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah, can you tell me why you're rising, please?
Madam Mayor, because I think it's really disrespectful when members get up at any point in the chamber, especially when we encourage young people to engage in democracy, when they haven't taken the time to find out what the process is. So young people, the Youth Council is empowered, just like any other part of democracy, that they submit motions when they want, as they want. There's no limitation to that. The fact that they haven't done previously is a matter for them, and they're entitled to do that. But then to mock them when they do, and to try to imply that an officer has written them, I'm really proud of our Youth Council. It's been recognised across the country. They are very formidable, champions for their other peers, and they do absolutely astoundingly across the country. It's recognised everywhere. To say that they have not got the capacity or the intelligence to write a motion themselves is really disrespectful, and I would appreciate if Councillor Arnott took the time to understand processes initially, but secondly, apologises to them, because that is deeply offensive, and I'm sure people across the chamber agree with me.
Thank you, and thank you to the Youth Council for bringing that motion to us. Does Council agree the resolution? Sorry. Sorry.
Okay. Hey. You vote.
She's not taking any more speakers.
Right. No, it's not on that. It's a point of order, please.
Yeah, we have to refer to a point that's been infringed if it's a point of order, Councillor Moores.
Well, thank you. This is a point, and I would like to, could we have a motion to ask for an apology, please?
No, we can't have a motion on that. That would have to...
amend the motion.
Sorry? Yeah, it would have to be submitted in writing.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Can you quote the point of order that you're challenging? It's got to be a point of order. If you're putting your hand up and saying point of order, you've got to tell me what point you're challenging.
Okay, so it's been asked for an motion to ask for an apology. I'm more than happy to apologise if anyone thinks that my intention is in any way to offend these young ladies. It certainly was not, and I did mention in my speech that I thought it was an accomplished presentation and it was a welcome contribution. My point is that if we read what's in black and white, which is the bridged version...
I think we've heard your original point,
yeah,
Councillor
okay, so
Arnott.
if anyone has taken offence, you have my sincere apologies, not intended. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been asked for a recorded vote on this. So, yeah, no, yeah, no, it won't be done tonight. Okay. Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, we want to go to a recorded vote.
Yep.
Please indicate in support or against, for or against, when I read out your name, please. If I could begin with Councillor Abid Sar. For or against?
Abstain.
Councillor Ahmad Riaz. For. Councillor Akhtar Schwab. For. Councillor Alexander Jinneh. Councillor Al Hamandini.
For.
Councillor Ali Mohan. Councillor Alias Mohammed. Councillor Arnott Dave.
Abstain.
Councillor Bashforth Marie. Apologies from Councillor Steve Bashforth. Councillor Birch Ross. Got apologies from Councillor Briggs. Councillor Brownridge.
For.
Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Chatterton. Councillor Shawhan. Councillor Cosgrove. Councillor Curley. Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dean. Councillor Gary.
For.
Councillor Gloucester Chris.
For.
Councillor Gloucester Hazel.
For.
Councillor Goodwin.
For.
Councillor Hamlet.
For.
Councillor Hindle.
For.
Councillor Holbin.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Hussain Aftab. Councillor Hussain Fader. Apologies. Councillor Abraham.
For.
Apologies to Councillor Iqbal. Councillor Islam Mohammed Nazrul.
For.
Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Leach.
For.
Councillor McLaren. For. Councillor Moores. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Fithian. Clint. Councillor Fithian. Kyle. Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Salamat. Councillor Shah. Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Surjan.
For.
Councillor Sykes.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
Very proud to vote for.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Woodvine.
For.
Councillor Harrison, Madam Mayor.
For.
The votes are 39 for and 4 abstain.
We now turn to item 8, which is question time. This part of the agenda is where Council will consider all questions submitted in the order received, starting with public questions. There is a 15-minute time limit for public questions, and once this time limit expires, no further questions will be asked. There is no right of reply to answers given. I'll be reading out the questions due to COVID restrictions. If the time limit has expired and a member of the public has submitted a question which has been ruled in for consideration, the question and response will be published on the Council's website. So the first question is from Duncan Breeze. Why has millions been spent on Alexander Park, but many others now represent derelict wastelands, included Failsworth Park? Will there be any work done to improve Failsworth Park so the residents of Failsworth can exercise and take their families there, etc.? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is my microphone working? Yeah, okay, brilliant. So, the millions that were spent on Alexandra Park were a result of successful lottery bid funding of just over £2.5 million. To put this into context though, this isn't recent money. I was 10 years old when Alexandra Park was successful in getting that lottery bid funding. Unfortunately for us, even though we had bid for other parks, the only other park that received lottery bid funding was Dunwood Park in Shaw. However, investment is and does continue to be made in all parks across Oldham. There is Section 106 money that is earmarked for Higher Memorial Park or Failsworth Park. And if the local housing developments are to go ahead, we'll see an investment of around £65,000 into improvements to the hard surface games area and general improvements to the park's landscape. When this money is received, I will ensure that a consultation exercise takes place with ward members and the public prior to the commitment of the funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chatterton. Before I just read the next question, I'd like to, Paul's done the maths, and the Youth Council motion, it was 44 for and 4 abstentions. Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Matthew Smith. It's become apparent in recent months that Mr Neil Wilby, Press, has much better access to Oldham Council, and specifically the leader of the council, than most of the constituents in the town. I recently emailed Labour councillors on a number of issues and never got a reply. However, Mr Wilby seems to have a hotline directly to the leader especially. May I remind Labour councillors and the leader of the council, this is the same journalist who has tweeted a number of offensive / abusive tweets about Labour MPs, including Angela Rayner. Does the leader think it's right that 1, a member of the press has better access to the council than most of the citizens of the town? And 2, how do you expect the citizens of the town to take the leader seriously when she's speaking about bullying and harassment, when she is happy to be in communications with a journalist, thanking him on a number of occasions when he's made a number of offensive tweets regarding your female Labour colleagues? I call on Councillor Shah to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Mr Smith for his question, actually, because I really appreciate the opportunity to give a clear answer, Madam Mayor, on something that I know to be the subject of lots of online speculation. So I've worked really hard, I think, during my leadership, and I think members would agree, to improve the accessibility and transparency of the council. We've introduced a big Oldham conversation event so that people can meet me and the chief executive and directly ask me anything they want to know about the council and the borough. We've launched a consultation on our town centre plans, and we've ramped up our engagement with local businesses. In addition, local people can ask questions here at full council and at other meetings, and can contact their elected members or can use many ways to contact the council to ask questions and find out information, and they often do. Mr Wilby is an accredited journalist, and as any other journalist, his queries are managed through the council press office. The local media plays an important part in holding the council to account, so we do make sure they have fair and appropriate access to information and are able to ask questions at any point. But that relationship with journalists is managed by council officers and not by me as council leader, so it goes straight through to the communications office and the press office. In terms of my personal engagement with people on social media, I respond positively to a wide range of people who talk about local issues and the borough on Twitter and elsewhere. I thank people who make useful comments, who are positive about the town, but this shouldn't be taken as an endorsement for everything that is said by those that I engage with. Overall, I strive to be accountable and open, whether that's with journalists or with members of the public, but that engagement happens using the proper council processes. However, it has come to my attention that there are a number of allegations of leaks and or breaches of data sharing that do concern me. It's not acceptable, Madam Mayor, for anyone, and that means anyone at all, in this council, whether that be member or officer, to be sharing information inappropriately. Due to this speculation about this issue, I've asked for a thorough, robust investigation into where information which appears to be being leaked is coming from. This should conclude by the end of this week, And I can assure you that robust action will be taken against anybody seen to be breaching our processes and procedures. I made it very clear at the start of my leadership, Madam Mayor, that I take my role and my responsibility very seriously, and that's why I've said robust action will be taken if there's any information that comes to light of any breaches anywhere, because I'm not going to allow anything like that to undermine not just democracy but public confidence in us as members or the council on the whole. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. The next question has been submitted by Robert Barnes. Following on from last month's question regarding the issue of giving the public a right of reply to public questions, would the council leader give serious consideration to suspending standing orders when there is no youth council business? This would allow for an extension of public questions to 30 minutes. A right of reply of 2 minutes for the public could then be built into public questions. Why does the council leader not believe that the people of our town should have a right of reply to answer to questions that they have raised? In the interests of transparency, accountability, democracy and trust in our elected members, would the council leader now look again at extending public questions to include time for members of the public to reply? I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, and I'm so glad that Robert Barnes understands the importance of timing when it comes to public questions, which is why he submitted the same question again that he did from last full council. So I thank him for raising this question again. And as confirmed at the last meeting, we have committed to reviewing the approach we take to public questions, including the time allocated to them. And this review process will take place through a cross-party constitutional committee, which I informed him of at the last full council meeting, with any changes recommended to full council. And the objective will be to make sure residents have as much opportunity as they can to engage with us as a council, while still allowing time for other important business. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Paul Shilton. Community centres are vital hubs of each community that they serve, and their futures must be secured for generations to come. Short-term leases of up to 25 years are only offered to these facilities when a more permanent lease could ensure community investment. I'll read that bit again. When a more permanent lease could ensure community investment was not raised or donated in vain. After over 2 years, the 25-year lease for Groton Pavilion is still to be confirmed. Can the council assure this community that their community hub will not be sacrificed for the profits of developers in 25 years' time by providing a 100-year lease to ensure its future? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and can I thank Mr Shilton for his question as well. The council, of course, values its community facilities, and we are always keen to work with community groups to retain and develop their services in council premises in accordance with council policy. The council and the Groton Residents Association have agreed terms for their continued occupation of the premises. This agreement was approved on the 6th of October this year and is now with the respective parties' solicitors to formalise the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Roland Smith. It's good to see the council has volunteered Oldham to accommodate asylum seekers. However, I have a big concern that Oldham Council is doing this without improving facilities in the town. My doctor's takes typically 3 weeks for a face-to-face appointment. My granddaughter struggled to get in her first choice of school, which was the closest to her home. Oldham A&E is at busting points, both financially and resources. I have a real fear the town is taking too much of the responsibility when it comes to asylum seekers, especially when you see the Tory-run councils which take zero to little in terms of asylum seekers. Whilst it's helpful to take these people, it can't be done at the detriment of the current population. Can you reassure me if we are to take more asylum seekers, then these areas are massively improved? I ask Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Roland Smith for his question. But Madam Mayor, I do have to clarify that the Council has not volunteered to accommodate more asylum seekers. The Home Office informed Oldham Council that they intended to use the hotel due to the significant pressures currently in the national asylum system. Decisions regarding where asylum seekers are placed are taken by the Home Office. The Regional Provider Circle produces a list of hotels for the Home Office, which then decides which hotels to use. The Council does not receive any funding for this, and I echo Mr Smith's concerns about this and also about the inequity of the current asylum dispersal system. Decisions on placements are made by the Home Office based on cost, with people placed where cheap accommodation can be found. As a result, as Mr Smith suggests, places with higher levels of poverty are taking more asylum placements than more affluent areas, and the areas with higher numbers of placements are also the areas hardest hit by the impact of cuts to public service funding, which we've seen over the last 10 years. This same issue has been raised time and time again with the government. The previous Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, made a commitment in 2018 to address this, but there's been no change, and I have since raised this exact issue with a joint letter from the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, to the Home Office Secretary this time round, Priti Patel, and I'm awaiting a response. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Peter Roberts. Oldham has the highest youth employment rate. Could the relevant Cabinet member please inform the Council what support is available for young people to support them into employment or training? I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank Peter Roberts for the question. The youth unemployment rate in Oldham has been dramatically impacted by COVID. Youth unemployment peaked in March 21 at 16.4%. In November, this had dropped to 10.9%, a reduction over the last 8 months, eight-month period. The reopening of the economy is having an impact upon youth unemployment, which has been reducing significantly over the last 8 months. A year ago, there were just 5,000 jobs posted across Greater Manchester, but year on, this has doubled to almost 11,000 vacancies. The Council is working hard with partners to promote access to a range of schemes which there are 12 that are available for unemployed people. For example, Kickstart, Prince's Trust, Positive Steps, Rio Ferdinand Foundation. These are just some of the examples. I will urge unemployed and neat young people to contact Get Oldham Working Team or the Job Centre, and then they will signpost them to the appropriate scheme for the relevant support. Get Oldham Working has supported 9,000 Oldham residents into employment over the last 8 years. However, there is a gap emerging for some 18-year-olds. Some of this will be addressed by the Community Renewal Programme that Positive Steps and Northern Routes were successful in winning. We know the economy is improving. We have seen a growth in new business startups, and we are seeing a great demand for business space in Oldham itself. The Council and partners will be launching a campaign in the new year to make sure that young people of Oldham know what is available in terms of support to them over the next year or so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Peter Skolchok. Just recently, the Council promoted the Oldham Business Growth Fund to businesses across the borough and invited bids from the manufacturing, creative and digital sectors. Could the relevant Cabinet member please update on how many businesses have been supported through this fund, the number of anticipated jobs created and the amount of private sector contributions? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, please.
It's me again, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Paul Skolchuk for the question. The Council is finalising the approval of the grant agreements but it is expected that the business growth grant in the value of almost £345,000 will support 26 companies to create 120 jobs and leveraging a further over £500,000 into the private sector investment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So we haven't got time for the next one. No. Yeah. So just one more question, and this has been submitted by Janet Hargreaves. Could the relevant Cabinet member please share what plans the Council has to engage with small businesses across the borough and to explain how the GM Clean Air Zone charge will affect small businesses in Oldham? That is Councillor Jabbar. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Janet Hargreaves for her question. The small businesses have been engaged around the GM Clean Air Plan and the Clean Air Zone that will be operational from 30th of May 2022. The Council already has been actively engaged with small businesses via press releases and social media posts, as well as promoting the Clean Air Plan via the weekly business newsletter, which has 5,000 subscribers. Information has also been posted recently regarding the grant funding available to owners of non-compliant HGVs so that they can be helped to replace prior to May 2022. Details of other grants funding focus towards owners of non-compliant light good vehicles and taxi who have an exemption to any charges in the zone until 1st of June 23. This grant funding will be available at the end of January 2022, and the Council has committed, together with all the other GM councils, to continue to engage with effective business owners. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. The next part of this section is questions to Leader and Cabinet with a time limit of 30 minutes. I have advance notice of questions. The Conservative Group Leader will ask his questions first. Councillor Sheldon, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council will be aware that businesses and places of worship currently hold a music licence. This used to be 2 licences, the Performing Rights Society, PRS, and the Phonographic Performance Limited, PPL. This licence enables all types of businesses to play live, recorded music, and even music heard on a television to their customers in their place of business. The costs of these licenses vary depending on the size of venue and how the music is played in the venue. I would like to bring to your attention that all businesses can apply for a credit if the venue or business was closed during lockdown and they were unable to play television or background music. One of my constituents has waited 3 months for a credit note, but I thought it was important to remind the businesses in Oldham Town Centre and in the area in general that a refund is available in these difficult financial times. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shah, please respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Sheldon for the question. I'm not sure what the actual question is. If it's you want me to support in getting that communication out, then I think Councillor Sheldon is right to raise that, because I would suggest that it's slightly been overlooked, that specific business. So I think I'm really grateful to him for raising that. I'll have a conversation with him after this and we'll put out the communications to support it or help in any other way that I can that you think will be helpful. But I do appreciate him raising that. Thank you so much.
Your second question, Councillor Sheldon, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we've all probably seen over the television in the last few days our utter disbelief with the tragic circumstances following the death of the little boy and the baby girl that were killed and tortured by their parents and guardians. I think we need to raise awareness that if anyone has a concern, they personally need to raise that concern and call our safeguarding team. I know the safeguarding team at the borough has an excellent record, and I would like the number to go out to everybody, which is 0161 770 and all the sevens, 7777. Please do not expect others to call. If you have a concern or suspect anything untoward is happening, you need to make that call. The safeguarding team will then decide to take any necessary action. Council is asked to consider whether a review is necessary and whether our laws and the penalty for such horrendous and evil acts should be revisited. Finally, I need to reiterate that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility, and tragedies like this must not happen. Thank you very much.
So is there an actual question, Councillor Sheldon?
I just want support, Madam Mayor, from the leader of the council to promote or to re-inform the people of the town that we have this facility and the number they can call. Thank you.
The leaders to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I do thank Councillor Sheldon for his question and for raising it. It's, you know, a tragic situation, and we're all aware of the cases of Arthur Lavinia Hughes, who was murdered in June 2020 by his parents in Solihull in the West Midlands. And sadly, yesterday we heard about a new case of Star Hobson, who's a 16-month-old child who died in Bradford at the hands of her mother and her partner. Understandably, there's been a lot of public concern about the effectiveness of safeguarding arrangements arising from these cases, and that's something that I completely understand. I'm also aware that the government have announced 2 reviews in response to these highly concerning cases, and a review of Arthur and Star's cases by the National Child Safeguarding Practice Review Panel, and a joint targeted area inspection to look at the effectiveness of safeguarding arrangements in Solihull. They've also, I understand, appointed a commissioner, Madam Mayor, to conduct an independent review of safeguarding practice in Bradford. And this additional scrutiny is welcome so that we can all fully learn that lessons from these very sad cases. We can never be in a position to say that we get this right, because we don't, and there's always learning to be done. But it's just unfortunate that sometimes that's triggered by such tragedy. And in Oldham, we're committed to strong safeguarding services to protect children, and it's always deeply concerning when such a tragedy like this occurs. And I would just like to give my support to Councillor Sheldon in to say that we should communicate our helplines and build our public confidence in them services. But I do know the work of social workers is extremely hard. We should constantly review them, the support that they get, and acknowledge how difficult that will be for them. But we should always hold ourselves to the highest standards. So I thank Graham Sheldon for his question.
Thank you. The leader of the Liberal Democrat group will ask his questions. Councillor Sykes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start my question, you start the clock running. We don't seem to be streaming this meeting on the website, so if somebody could explain, maybe after I finish my questions, what that is, because I've certainly been contacted by 3 different members of the public wanting to know why they can't watch this meeting while I've been sat in it. Yes, I know they need to do something else, but they wanted to watch it, and that's what they wanted to do. So if somebody could actually look into that, that'd be great. My first question tonight is to look at car parking at the Royal Oldham Hospital. The complaints that both I and my Liberal Democrat colleagues regularly receive from constituents who are either outpatients or visitors to the hospital is the difficulty they encounter in finding a car parking space. And it doesn't matter whether they're disabled or just looking for an ordinary space. Sometimes residents, myself included, drive around for what seems like an age to find a space as the minutes tick away for the appointment. Frankly, the stress is just not needed, I can assure you, especially when you're waiting for life-saving treatment, maybe for cancer, or rushing to visit a sick relative. In addition, car parking spaces is sometimes some way from the relevant ward or outpatients department, and visitors who are infirm or of ill health can struggle to make the distance between the car and the building. Can the leader, through her Cabinet Member for Health, maybe make an appeal to the hospital authorities to look again at visitor parking spaces to create more spaces in future development plans? Can they also be asked to ensure that the patient and visitor spaces, rather than staff spaces, are located closer to the wards and the outpatient departments? We also receive complaints about car parking charges. I've carried out some research about car parking charges at the hospital, and there's a surprising number of concessions that would allow many patients to park for free or at a much reduced rate. If only they knew about them and could find a parking space. So the third part of this question is, could I ask the leader and the Cabinet Member if they'll work with the Health Authority and the hospital and the other relevant agencies such as Home Watch and cancer charities to raise the public's awareness of these much needed concessions for regular visitors to the hospital. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Are you taking that, Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, will do, Madam Mayor. So the issue around Wi-Fi, I can only apologise to the people who are so desperate to see Councillor Sykes, but they will get to see you tomorrow. Because there's technical issues, there's a Wi-Fi issue, and unfortunately, there's just nothing we can do about that right now. And you weren't even aware, Madam Mayor, so that's why I mentioned it as soon as I came in, because it was brought to my attention just very last minute.
That's true.
Yeah, so secondly, in terms of like the parking situation, I share Councillor Sykes' concerns and frustrations around that, and residents and anybody else who visits the hospital. But I know that them conversations are already happening through the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care and the hospital. I'll add the wider points that Councillor Sykes has made around the Home Watch and the charities to do whatever we can to communicate that more effectively. So that's fine. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sykes, your second question, please.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Mayor. I meant to say Health Watch, not Home Watch. They have enough to do at Home Watch, I suspect, rather than look after parking spaces at the hospital. But there we are, fraudulent slip. My second question, thank the leader for an answer to that question. My second question tonight, Madam Mayor, relates to the issue of crowdfunding. For councils up and down the country, as we all know, it's becoming increasingly difficult to afford capital projects or provide services or events that are outside statutory provision. One innovation that more and more councils are doing, from Manchester to Lewisham, is using crowdfunding. Crowdfunding provides a new model for local authorities to connect with communities and residents. It is a means with which local people become empowered to help deliver a capital project, service or an event that they want to see in their community by making an online financial contribution without the bureaucracy of funding bids. Sometimes this contribution is made altruistically, sometimes in the expectation of personal gain, such as receiving an interest payment or an invitation to a launch event. Plymouth Council was the first to launch Crowdfund Plymouth back in 2015, and within 12 months this initiative raised over £400,000 for more than 100 projects in the city. Several local authorities have used crowdfunding specifically to finance renewable energy projects. This is the number one area Oldham, I think, needs to look at. Swindon Borough Council raised £4.3 million from the public to fund 2 solar parks. Warrington and West Berkshire Council raised over £1 million each through community municipal bonds, and Islington Council have just currently doing the same. Back in 2019, a report from the University of Leeds titled Financing for Society concluded that crowdfunding has huge untapped potential for public sector infrastructure finance, with finance accessible at a comparable rate to loans from the Public Works Loans Board. So my question to the leader, therefore, is if we are indeed a cooperative council, intent on engaging with our communities in our work and in getting everybody to do their bit, especially in helping to make our borough carbon neutral by 2030, should we, as a council, not at least be investigating the merits of crowdfunding? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah, please, to answer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I agree entirely. So I will ask our officers to do a piece of work to explore the crowdfunding opportunity and volunteer the Cabinet member and my Deputy Leader, who's very passionate around this area, to have a conversation with the Leader of the Opposition. And I welcome the idea. I think it's good. I think we have to be innovative, especially when we know that the government isn't going to give us more. So we have to do a lot more for ourselves. So it's a really great idea. I welcome it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The Leader of the Failsworth Independent Party will ask his question. Councillor Hoban, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't aware of one of the public questions, so my question will slightly copy that. And I know the Leader has answered it, but it'll be worth having the reassurances again. And it's regarding the leaks that seem to be coming from the council at the moment. The council leader will be aware that my colleague Councillor Wilkinson has experienced leaks against him going out to the public to a malicious blogger, and the malicious blogger received the details of issues at a committee before Councillor Wilkinson. This blogger, supposed journalist, has admitted on tweets that he'd received information through leaked documents from this council. Surely this goes to the heart of what we do here, and it should worry all members if things are going outside that shouldn't be going outside, and especially if they're going outside to people that are going to use it against us. Confidentiality should be paramount in this place. We should be able to trust one another. I know that we're building bridges with each other, with the leaders and with other members, and trying to work together at the council as never before, in my experience, the relationships that we're building. Surely items like this and leaks like this will cause friction and are being put out there for the very reason to cause division and to scupper any relationships that we have. But even more concerning for me was that we recently found out that it wasn't just members of this chamber who were being leaked against, but a member of the public has had matters leaked against them to this malicious blogger who's used them against them. This is private information. The council itself has admitted that the leak has taken place. It's very concerning, and surely this...
Councillor Hoban, it's 2 minutes for a question, so can you get to your question?
I've nearly finished, Madam Mayor. Surely it's an issue of GDPR, and I know that Councillor Shah has made a statement on this on the question asked by the public, but I would like assurance, and of course members in here deserve assurance, that the source of these leaks will be found, will be dealt with severely, and criminal action taken if necessary, and that contact with any malicious blogger from any member within this chamber shall be condemned. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hoban. Call on the Leader to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hoban, for your question. And I think it's worth mentioning it twice. I think it's really important.
Excuse me, Councillor Shah, could I just interrupt? Yeah. Okay, we'll take that up with the Leader. I would please ask you to take your seat again, and we cannot afford to have the interruptions. Well, I'm sure Councillor Shah will get in touch with you. And yeah.
Madam Mayor,
I think we have dealt with this.
Madam Mayor, I would like to respond to the elected leader of the Billsworth Independents who's asked a really important question.
I think
this isn't public question time. We've gone past that.
I think we will have to ask you to either resume your seat and just carry on to listen, or I will have to ask you to leave the chamber.
So, Madam Mayor, I thank Councillor Holbein for his question, and I thank him. Even though I responded to it previously, I do think it's important, and I share your concerns. So I'm really happy to repeat what I said earlier. So, as I mentioned earlier, the issue of whether confidential information has been shared with people outside of the organisation has been brought to my attention too. Local people should be able to trust that we manage their data, Madam Mayor, when they contact us, and manage confidential council information in appropriate ways and keep it as safe as possible. That's our responsibility and our duty, and people contact us with good faith and expect us to do that. I've already asked officers to undertake an urgent review into the particular issue you refer to and investigate who, if anyone, is inappropriately sharing confidential information. This review will take place and conclude by the end of this week, and we will take the strongest action possible against anyone found to be leaking or sharing things inappropriately. I'm just as appalled as you are, Councillor Holbein, about this issue, and promise that if this is found to be happening, immediate action will be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. I interrupted you because your voice was being drowned out in an attempt to try and resolve that situation.
It has been since I've been leader, Madam Mayor.
You managed to get your answer in the end, Councillor Holbein, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, so where are we up to? Yeah. So I call on Councillor McLaren now to ask a question. Thank you, Councillor McLaren.
McLaren, yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Even before the pandemic, food poverty was on the rise nationally. Here in Oldham, the council recognised the problem and worked closely with its partners to tackle hunger amongst young children. Unfortunately, the pandemic made a bad situation worse, and many Oldham families will be worried about how they will cope during the winter. Could the relevant Cabinet member please advise what help and support is available for children, young people and their families during the recent October half term, and what the plans are for the Christmas school holidays? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Moores to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McLaren, for the question. Oldham Council recognised it needed to tackle hunger amongst children school holiday periods. When the Department for Work and Pensions announced funding in the form of the Household Support Grant covering the period between October 2021 and March 2022, the Council chose to use some of this funding during the October half-term holiday to issue food vouchers for families with children eligible for means-tested free school meals, families on low income with preschool children, to provide support for college students eligible for free school meals, and vouchers for care leavers under 25. This funding is also being used to support children and young people in the same way over the Christmas holiday and during the half-term holiday in February next year. In addition to this, Oldham Council, with the support of the wider sector, are utilising the Holiday Activity Fund to provide free holiday provision, including healthy food and enriching activities for school-aged children who receive benefit-related free school meals. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. I call on Councillor Davis to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now the public consultation on the Oldham local plan has finished, which I encourage members of the public to take part in, as well as commenting in myself, to request an Article 4 direction which would remove the permitted rights to be able to convert properties in Oldham into houses of multiple occupancy. I have noticed a lot of these developments changing the makeup of areas, including my own in Failsworth, and the loss of family homes which there is a need for. Can I rely on the council's backing for my suggestion? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davis, for your question. Following the close of the recent public consultation on the Oldham local plan, the Council continues work on this. One of the matters the Council will address through the local plan is how best to manage the conversion of properties to HMOs across the borough. This will involve assessing whether an Article 4 direction to remove permitted development rights on the conversion of homes to HMOs for up to 6 people can be justified in certain parts of the borough most affected by a proliferation of HMOs. It will also involve introducing a policy in the local plan for the Council to use when making decisions on planning applications for the conversion of non-residential properties to HMOs and the conversion of residential properties to HMOs of more than 6 people.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I call on Councillor Goodwin to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Recent figures from the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities have shown that a total of 194,060 new build homes were constructed between April 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021, a 5-year low, and down more than 11% on the previous year. A contributing factor for this decline has been stated as being as a result of council approvals being slowed by staff working from home. May I ask the responsible Cabinet member to confirm how many homes have been built within the borough or are in progress during the same 12-month period, how this figure compares with the previous 12 months, how many planning applications have been granted for housing developments in the borough over the last 3 years, and how many such approved developments are yet to commence?
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts again to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Goodwin, for your question. I can clarify that the reduction in the number of new homes built both nationally and in Oldham between the 1st of April 2020 and the 31st of March 2021 is not related to council staff working from home. Homes built between those dates would have been granted planning permission before March 2020. Council staff, both nationally and in Oldham, only moved to home working with the introduction of the first national lockdown on the 23rd of March 2020. In reality, the reduction in the number of new homes is due to the fact that the vast majority of construction sites stopped work for at least part of the first national lockdown, and when they were able to reopen, had to introduce additional COVID safety measures that slowed construction compared to normal practices. In answer to Councillor Goodwin's specific questions, the number of homes built in Oldham between the 1st of April 2020 and the 31st of March 2021 was 373. The number of homes built in Oldham between the 1st of April 2019 and the 31st of March 2020 was 728, and that was the highest number for several years. Number of planning applications granted for housing developments in Oldham between the 1st of April 2018 and the 31st of March 2021, 254 sites were granted planning permission, providing a total of 1,886 homes. The number of those planning applications granted for housing developments in Oldham between the 1st of April 2018 and the 31st of March 2021 that haven't yet started were 148 of those sites, providing a total of 1,034 homes, have not yet started by the 30th of September 2021. However, it should be noted that 81 of these sites, totalling 730 homes, were only granted planning permission in the last year. This lag between granting permission and starting development is not unusual, given there is often a lot of pre-commencement work, including the discharge of pre-commencement planning conditions, to be done between getting planning permission and starting building.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Before the next question, I'd just like to say that the time that was taken by the interruption, it won't be lost in this section of the agenda. We will allow 5 minutes so that we can get as many questions in as we can. I call upon Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Although asbestos has been banned, it can still be found in 80% of British schools, meaning our teachers continue to work and our children often continue to study in buildings containing this toxic material. Since 2001, at least 305 teachers and other education professionals have died of mesothelioma after exposure. The campaign Airtight on Asbestos believes that the situation could be much improved if routine air monitoring takes place in our classrooms, and if the clasp and system built into schools in the 1950s can be replaced. Can the Cabinet Member for Education please tell me what checks are routinely carried out in our older schools to monitor air quality for asbestos particles, and what action is taken if these are found to be at an unacceptable level? And can the Cabinet Member please tell me how many clasp or system built schools we have in our borough and what is the current timescales to replace them? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Ali to respond, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Gloucester for your question. Oldham Council complies fully with Regulation 4 of the Control of Asbestos Regulation 2012, which obliges all organisations to effectively and proactively manage the risk from asbestos. From 2002, asbestos surveys have been commissioned to all council schools to identify, as far and as is reasonably practical, the presence and extent of any asbestos containing materials in the premises. And to assess the condition in relation to the immediate environment. The Unity Partnerships BOHS registered asbestos competent consultants under the current building maintenance service level agreements are regularly carrying out the necessary asbestos condition inspection and priority risk assessment works to ensure compliance with the regulations. Asbestos installations remaining in situ in occupied areas of the schools are in good condition and sealed and are recorded on the school's live asbestos register. Schools that don't buy into the SLA are monitored by the Council's Health and Safety Service. As part of this work, site-specific asbestos management plans have been created for each premise. The purpose of the plan is to set out how the risks from any asbestos found during the survey are to be managed and therefore to prevent accidental exposure to asbestos fibres. The work by the Unity Partnership is repeated on an annual basis to assist in updating the asbestos site management plans. In addition to the annual reviews, the school site managers carry out a weekly condition inspection check of the asbestos material. Previously identified clasp or system built schools have now been demolished and new schools built. The same management protocols were in place for these buildings prior to demolition. Nearly finished, Madam Mayor. The ongoing monitoring of the asbestos management plans demonstrates the Council's ongoing commitment to a strong and effective health and safety culture. The primary objective is to ensure the safety and welfare of people, staff and anyone else who visit the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Arnott to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 24th of November, the Oldham Evening Chronicle published an extremely disturbing article in relation to allegations of bullying and sexual assault by a fellow pupil at the Radcliffe School in Chadderton. Although for obvious reasons many details of the harrowing events that led to a pupil attempting to take her own life cannot be published, it is clear that there were significant failings in the processes and procedures that should have been followed. Please could the council leader or the appropriate cabinet member reassure parents that all schools in the borough have been contacted and reminded of their responsibilities and obligations when it comes to the physical, emotional and mental well-being of the children who are in their care. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Ali to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Arnott, for your question. The head teacher of Radcliffe School issued a statement saying start again without my mask. Yeah, so the head teacher of Radcliffe School issued a statement saying we have acknowledged and apologised where failings have occurred, and we will be learning from this in the future. I can reassure parents that school leaders in the borough are regularly reminded of their obligations for safeguarding of children who in their care through the regular communications from the portfolio holders for Children's Services and Education and from the Director of Children's Services and Education. In addition, head teachers and chains of governors receive a weekly update on pertinent safeguarding matters through the Education and Early Years briefing. Oldham Safeguarding Children Partnership has an engagement model which is used to communicate with settings, schools, academies and colleges regarding keeping children safe in education matters. There is a representation on the strategic safeguarding partnership from senior leaders in all education sectors, and designated safeguarding leads are on key safeguarding groups. Termly network meetings are held to ensure information is shared from the partnership. Within the partnership business unit, there is a dedicated safeguarding advisor for education who is the link with schools on safeguarding matters, and a training officer who works with schools and colleges offering training and support on relationship and sex education topics. A number of council services are tasked with supporting schools on emotional well-being and mental health. The mental health in education team work with our schools to embed universal support for all pupils and all staff. Each school has an allocated advisor to address their needs through consultation, curriculum, planning or training. The team work with stakeholders to ensure that there is a consistent approach to mental health in schools and across the health sector. They offer bespoke support based on the needs identified through self-assessments and action plans. The core training offer enables staff to have a well-being conversation, look beyond behaviour and support staff well-being. Right, thank you.
It might just be worth noting that this section, it's 2 minutes for questions, 2 minutes for answers. If people could tailor their questions and responses to that, it really helped with them keeping to the timings on the agenda. Thank you. This will be the last question in this section. I call on Councillor Leach to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's more important than ever that young children are in school or in early years provision according to their age. Providers of early childhood development services in schools, in private and voluntary organisational settings, childminders, all of them are facing cost pressures. Claims against government COVID funds will no longer be available, but staffing absences continue and official staffing ratios must still be adhered to. And so the costs of temporary staff must be incurred or services closed. Providers are also reporting difficulties in recruiting staff and wage rates are rising. Given these staffing and cost pressures, can the Cabinet member please let us know what is the impact on the numbers of children attending early childhood development services? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Moores to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Leach, for the question. I do have quite a lengthy response to this question, but I will keep it brief and ensure that a full response is circulated later. Providers of early years education and childcare are facing very challenging times as they strive to maintain quality services amid multiple operational and financial pressures. These include changing patterns of paternal demand as a result of new ways of working, additional operational demands associated with the need for infection control, staff absence due to illness and isolating, and staff recruitment difficulties due to unattractive wages. With regard to attendance in early years settings, the DFE estimates that the current attendance is approximately 86% of the daily level. Take-up of places in Oldham, there is a slight dip in take-up of places compared to pre-pandemic. Finally, there are a number of financial implications, meaning providers will continue to face further pressures on their running costs. These include a legacy of slightly lower levels of funding in Oldham compared to other similar authorities, inflation standing at 5.1%, the 6.6% increase in the living wage, but where the problem really lies is in central government's failure to invest in early years provision. In the autumn budget, they announced a 3.8% increase in the hourly rate of funding for free early years education from April 2022. I will leave you to do the maths, but it appears to me to be too little and too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. And that concludes that part. So we now move on to questions of on Cabinet minutes. The next part of this section is questions on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Chatterton to second that Council notes the minutes of the Cabinet as circulated.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council agree the minutes? Thank you. Does any member who is not a Cabinet member wish to ask a question on the Cabinet minutes? I have had advance notice of questions. So Councillor Lancaster, please, your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question concerns item 7, other protected open land interim planning paper of the Cabinet minutes of the 20th of September. Following the different Greater Manchester-wide spatial development plans, the GMSF and now Places for Everyone, there is understandably a great deal of mistrust amongst residents of our borough about the Council's willingness to stand up and protect our precious green spaces for the future generations to enjoy. Unfortunately, on our current course, this feeling of mistrust will only deepen, with 5 of the present OPOL sites set to be de-designated and not recommended for succession to the local green spaces LGS model. 2 of these sites are situated in Saddleworth, one of which at Rumbles Lane, Delph, being in my Saddleworth North ward. In both instances, the Council's own assessment acknowledges that the land adds to our area's attractiveness. So can I please ask the Cabinet Member for Housing for reconsideration to be given to these sites with a view to them being designated under LGS? And on a marginally more positive note, I would like to welcome the addition of a new site at Sholver Lane in the St James ward, but this does not offset the losses elsewhere, and so can I ask as well that further efforts are invested into finding new sites across the borough which would benefit from LGS protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Potentially de-designating OPAL sites and potentially designating new local green spaces is something that's dealt with in the new local plan for Oldham. The reason for moving from a locally set designation like OPAL to a designation such as local green space is intended to reinforce the protection from development, so to try and give the stronger protection given to those spaces designated as a local green space. However, the criteria for this are different. In identifying which sites should be designated as a local green space, the Council has put forward an initial view based on the assessment of Opal sites against green space criteria, but no final decision has yet been made. If members or local residents wish to put forward further evidence why any of those Opal sites should be designated as local green spaces, or why any other entirely new sites should be considered for designation, the Council are listening to those suggestions as we prepare the new local plan. And I know that some local residents did put forward responses to the issues and options, but if any members wish to put forward more suggestions either for a local green space or please do. A green space is preferable because it means that the land will be better protected.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Woodvine to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased the Cabinet have chosen to replace the waste collection vehicles, but I'm surprised there are only 5 to cover the borough. In Saddleworth, and I suppose the borough, we do have an ageing population, and as such increasing single households and houses with older couples only. For these people, 3 weekly collections are more than enough. However, I have had concerns brought to me by families that fortnightly collections would be better. In a perfect world, we would have weekly collections, although with budgetary constraints, I realise this isn't possible in a borough this size. Some of those families are happy, however, to take their own waste to the tip, saving the council money. But the restrictions on the tip mean they cannot go as often as they may need to, especially if they drive pickups for domestic purposes. Therefore, did the Cabinet consider that reducing restrictions on the tip may mean people are happier to dispose of their own waste, and did they consider increasing the number of collection vehicles to in turn increase collection frequency? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Councillor Woodvine for his question as well. Councillor Woodvine is correct that 5 vehicles are not enough to cover a borough of our size. Oldham Council actually operates a fleet of 25 waste collection vehicles, but as a service they stagger the procurement process of the new vehicles to reduce the financial requirement and risk the service of replacing all the vehicles at the same time. We introduced 3 weekly collection just over 4 years ago now. This has delivered savings within the millions towards the cost of disposal of general rubbish, and also improved our recycling performance as well. Although restrictions have been made to the number of visits to the tip, these are in line with restrictions that have been imposed across the UK. And at the moment, it does mean that each household can visit the tip once a week. The current restrictions still allow for the household to take a carload of waste to the tip every week, and the reduced visits are only imposed for our larger vehicles. At this time, there's no consideration being made to increase the domestic collection frequencies or limit any further the restrictions around the tip. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chris Gloucester, please, to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cabinet 20th of September 21, item 6, page 41, and it relates to the Alexandra Park depot contract, the construction contract and final business case approval. Whilst we broadly welcome the reconstruction of Alexandra Park depot, which should provide a better and more efficient service to the communities of the borough, this project received Cabinet approval almost 12 months ago. However, the construction phase has only just begun. Since approval, costs in the building trade have spiralled. Can the Cabinet member assure us that this project will be completed on time and within the budget set for this project? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Gloucester, for your question. In January this year, Cabinet approved the scope of the project and the commencement of the contractor procurement process. Following the completion of the design and a robust tendering process, the preferred contractor submitted an initial cost on 7th of July 2021. This was followed by a detailed tender negotiation to ensure price certainty and a fixed price sum, culminating in Cabinet approval on the 20th of September 2021. The final contract sum was signed off by the Chair of the CIPB on 3rd of November 2021 and included approval for an adjustment in the contract's cost, recognizing material inflation. Since then, the contractor has commenced work on the site on 6th of December 2021 and has, with the other council's capital projects, comprehensive contract management, change control processes are in place to manage the project in progress. These processes will be managed by an experienced team of professionals who will monitor the contract and the work. I am hopeful, Madam Mayor, the contract will be delivered on budget, on time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Murphy to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that we finally have something that resembles Oldham's stance on other protected open land, which, to note, the Liberal Democrats have been asking for a long time. If a proper open policy was in date when planning applications like Cowleyshaw and Denby Drive were submitted, then residents would have or would be in a better position to keep the area where they live as it is. The administration has used the lack of policy as a backdoor way to sneak in housing numbers to achieve Tory housing targets. The Cabinet resolved that the other protected open land interim planning paper be adopted. The interim planning paper would be used as a material consideration to assess the significance of each other protected open land. Could I ask the Cabinet member, how exactly will the Council assess the significance of each other protected open land? And would the Cabinet, I'll be talking about Peppa Pig in a minute, won't I? And would the Cabinet member please explain why we're behind other local authorities and would not have an OPAL policy, a proper OPAL policy, and why we didn't update it sooner? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council has, and has always had since 2011, a, quotes, proper policy on other protected open land in the form of Policy 22 of the adopted Joint Core Strategy and Development Management Policies, DPD. The question fails to acknowledge that local plan policies can be rendered out of date under paragraph 11 brackets D of the National Planning Policy Framework when the Council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. The only way to bring that policy up to date is to demonstrate either a 5-year housing land supply or to adopt an entirely new policy through a review of the local plan. When the Council does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and so policies like that for OPAL are considered, quotes, out of date under national planning policy, the weight that the Council can give to those policies in decision-making on planning applications is reduced, and the weight given to the fact that an application will provide much-needed new housing is given greater weight. I think this is called the tilted balance. This means that the Council is less able to resist applications for housing development on OPAL sites, such as that referred to at Cowleyshaw. Denby Drive has not yet been determined. The interim planning paper is designed to be used as what's known as material consideration in determining planning applications. A material consideration is any matter which, while possibly not adopted policy, is relevant to consider in deciding planning application. The interim planning paper will set out how the OPAL sites in the borough meet the local green space criteria, and as I said earlier, this provides stronger protection for those sites. The suggestion that the Council, quotes, are behind other local planning authorities and do not have a proper OPAL policy and why we did not update it sooner, end quote, is entirely misleading. We cannot, quotes, be behind other local authorities in relation to an OPAL policy, as it is a locally set policy unique to Oldham. As I have already said, we do have a proper OPAL policy. Updating it to use a local green space designation instead can only be done through adopting a new local plan. The Council are already preparing a new local plan, as you are aware.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask a question. Thank you.
It's the Cabinet, 20th of September, item 8, page 42, Education Contributions Interim Planning Paper. This paper focuses solely on education contributions. Could the Cabinet member responsible please tell me why there has not been a matching health contributions interim planning paper, particularly when there is considerable pressure to provide new healthcare facilities in a number of wards across the borough? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts again to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank Councillor Williamson for her question. It's been standard practice in Oldham for some time to collect contributions towards education improvements from a new development where it would create a need for additional school places in the local area. The latest education contributions paper is an update to the existing formula for calculating those contributions. Where a new development is adding significantly to the burden of existing health infrastructure, it is also possible to ask for a health contribution. However, as I'm sure you know, the majority of new developments in the borough struggle to be viable due to the local market value for housing in many areas and the cost of developing many sites in the borough. This means that many developments cannot afford to make contributions that secured towards provision of all of the things we ask for, public open space and education, and remain viable. All too often, it's housing as well, so we ask for affordable housing, public space and contributions towards education. All too often, one or more of these policy requirements is reduced or removed entirely from a development. Asking for a health contribution in addition will make this situation worse. Nonetheless, I can say that the overall policy on developer contributions will be reviewed as part of the local plan, and if necessary, a health contributions policy will be developed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. This will be the last question now. I call on Councillor Hamlet to ask his question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is in regards to Cabinet dated the 20th of the 9th, 2021, item 11, page 44, GM Streets for All strategy to the relevant Cabinet member. Will this mean our footpaths will finally be sorted and not be lumpy for the future? Thank you.
Calling Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, and I thank you, Councillor Hamlet, for his question about lumpy footpaths. The Streets for All doesn't offer specific funding for highway repairs, but we're investing as a council to improve our roads and footpaths. We're also really working hard to maximise funding from central government for highways improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. The final part of this section is questions on joint arrangements and partnerships. I call on the spokespersons to move the minutes. GMCA, Councillor Shah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Police, Fire and Crime Panel, Councillor Williams.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. National Peak Park Authority, Councillor McLaren.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Health and Wellbeing Board, will that be, Councillor Chowan tonight?
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioning Partnership Board, Councillor Chowan. Thank you. Does any member have any questions on the minutes? I do have advance notice of questions and call on Councillor Hamlet to ask his question. Thank you.
Again, sorry. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's in regards to GMCA 165/4/21, Education, Work and Skills Activity Update, point 3 records that this progress made to date on the European Social Fund Skills for Growth programme be noted. Could I ask what funding has been made available to replace the European Social Fund Skills for Growth programme since our departure from the European Union? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Ali to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hamlet, for your question. Under the exit agreement, there is a continuation of existing commitments from the European Social Investment Framework until December 2023. The replacement fund is the Shared Prosperity Fund, worth £2.6 billion. The government, as part of its levelling up commitment, created the Shared Prosperity Fund, which should have seen £3 million being targeted at Oldham, but locally projects managed to just access circa £500,000. GM in total only benefited to the value of circa £4.5 million from an expected £12 million. The council remains concerned that the government is not investing in levelling up the north. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I call on Councillor Al Hamdani to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's with regards to GMCA 16821 on the gender-based violence strategy. The minutes noted that it was important that the government also recognised this seismic issue and stepped up their level of support. The Law Commission recently published its recommendation to create a new crime of public sexual harassment in line with the Liberal Democrat motion that all of the council agreed, but declined to recommend making misogyny a hate crime. Does the member responsible feel that this is going far enough? Would they agree with me that it is important the government sends out a stronger message against misogyny and that more work needs to be done with a view to adopting misogyny as a hate crime? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Hamdani for his question, which is a really easy answer to question, because of course I absolutely believe that misogyny should be a hate crime, and unlike our Prime Minister, I believe that the scale of the issue is more of a reason that we should be addressing it. In Oldham, we recognise and understand the harmful impact of misogyny, and there is a wealth of ongoing work to raise awareness and respond. We support the introduction of any legislation which holds perpetrators to account for their targeted behaviour toward people on the basis of protected characteristics, and which recognises aggravating factors that need to be considered during sentencing. This includes the Law Commission's recommendation to extend the existing offence of stirring up hatred to include doing onso on the grounds of sex and gender. This would make it a criminal offence to promote misogynistic views, and this is vital. But introducing new offences is not enough. It's also critical that new measures result in meaningful enforcement action, and government need to ensure that there are both the resources available and a willingness to prosecute new offences. The message from the government about misogyny needs to be seen to result in action. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hamdani.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask a question, please.
GMCA 172/21 Environment Agency and United Utilities Memorandum of Understanding. There has been an increasing number of instances of United Utilities disputing whether repair works in the borough are their responsibility. Could the Cabinet member responsible tell me if any data is being kept on the number of cases where this has happened, and if this memorandum of understanding will help the council reduce the number of occasions on which this is happening?
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Williamson for her question. I agree with this premise of the question. It does feel a little bit like United Utilities are trying to pass the buck back onto us. And the reality is it's only Oldham Council and its residents who will continue to be affected by a result of these disputes. We have raised this issue at North West level and also at the combined authority level, but we're disappointed there's only been a slight improvement to the service they provide so far. We do keep a log of all the incidents and the disputes that come in from United Utilities. However, we remain concerned and unconvinced that the memorandum of understanding that we've got These types of issues are always going to be subjective, and each issue has to be investigated on a case-by-case basis. So it's very hard to conclude exactly who's responsible for the issues on a lot of occasions. However, we've recently been allocated specific personnel to deal with at United Utilities, so we now have a very specific point of contact for when issues arise. However, faced with the number of ongoing issues and the number of historic issues, it does remain a concern how we're going to resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Sykes, please, to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. GMCA, it was a good meeting, weren't it, that GMCA meeting last on the 20th, minute 202.21. This is about the Manchester Brownfield Housing Fund and the reallocation of what's called Tranche 2 additional 10% monies. So the minutes refer to 96.9 million, and I'm just wondering what is Oldham's share of that, bearing in mind the amount of brownfield land we have in Oldham, and is it a fair and equitable share, or as usual are we being short-changed by the combined authority? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Call on Councillor Roberts, please, to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The figure of, I think we've discussed this before, the figure of £96.9 million in the minute referred to is the total amount of brownfield housing land funding secured by GMCA from the government to date for allocation on qualifying residential development schemes across the whole of the GM City region. Oldham has secured a total of £8.1 million Brownfield Housing Fund grant to support the delivery of up to 500 new homes across 4 sites. The Council has secured provisional allocations of £2 million and £4.5 million for proposed developments at Durka and Southlink respectively. First Choice Homes have secured £1 million to deliver the redevelopment of West Vale, and Countryside Properties £0.6 million to help deliver new homes at Bulcote Lane in Royton. We will of course continue to closely monitor whether any further opportunities to deliver the quality new affordable homes that we need come forward, and if so, we will bid accordingly, doing everything possible to ensure that Oldham receives its fair share of any funding opportunities that are on offer. I know I was asked last time about the money that was announced in the budget, or the spending review, but we haven't yet heard anything about that.
Thank you. Councillor Al-Hamdani, you're asking Councillor Kenyon's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I am. Just imagine me with long hair in a confident manner. So it's GMP CFP 2521 on the IOPS system. The minutes from this meeting state that the Chief Constable aimed to be in a position by the end of this year to know whether the current system was fit for purpose. We're in our final meeting of the year and no decision appears to have been taken yet on whether it is. A cost of £27 million and rising. Could the member responsible just give me a yes, no answer as to whether a decision is going to be taken in the next 3 weeks? Additionally, the minutes also note that the panel noted the difficulties that are faced in introducing any new software system into a large-scale organisation. Could the member responsible give me a simple list of any other police forces who faced similar problems to those in Greater Manchester? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Williams, please, to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Andani for asking that question on behalf of Councillor Kenyon. Killer story, this, isn't it? The second part of your answer first. Have any other police forces experienced anything like this that Greater Manchester is experiencing? Yes, but not to the same extent. This is stuff that Greater Manchester is experiencing that others haven't. The other part of your question, will the decision be made? Check today. Probably by the end of next month, we'll get an answer. But what's an answer? So if it's going to be, sorry, Madam, it's going to just a bit of context for this, just to put it into context. If they go and pull the plug, Sam, on IOPS, what happens then? It's not going to be a new system in February, January, March, whenever. You're talking about at least 2 years later. So you still have to put up with that IOPS system for that length of time. So just imagine if you had a new computer system, all that data that's in IOPS now. And by the way, the command and control system, and nobody has to panic about this, if anybody rings for a bobby and it's 999 on blue lights, they'll get there, no problem. The command and control system of IOPS is brilliant. So is the dashboard stuff that the bobs are using. It's the police works inside, the other elements that they're struggling with, and that's the problem. So if they decide to go and pull it, you've got to wait a long time. So I'm thinking, no, Stick with it, get it fixed, get it sorted, because I've said it to the Mayor, I've said it to the Chief Constable, I've said it to the Deputy Mayor. Fix the thing, get it sorted. So today, I checked with officers just before I came in here, there's a whole host of meetings taking place with different entities from different people that's involved in IOPS. The people that made it, the people that put the software in, the data that's gone in it, police officers that said it. So there's loads of people having that meeting. And when it comes to that, then I'll be sure that by the time it comes to the end of January, we'll have some sort of a decision. But whatever decision is made, they've got to get it absolutely the right, Sam, because if they pull the plug, they've got a big problem there. £27 million worth of kit, and they've shoved it over there somewhere. No, they've got to get it sorted. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I call on Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I refer to the Commissioning Partnership Board, page 97. Does the member responsible think it's satisfactory from minutes of this important body from April 21, 8 months ago, are only now being presented to the Council? I, for one, do not. Thank you.
Calling Councillor Chorn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Do I find it satisfactory? Yes, because it follows the process, and the process is that minutes are sent to full council, must be approved at the following meeting of the relevant committee or board before being part of the agenda. Since the meeting in April 2021, the next meeting of the Commissioning Partnership Board was held on 21st of October, where the minutes from April were approved. Members are also able to view the minutes online before they go to the following meeting and full council, and members of the public are also allowed to attend the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowan. So now we move to item 9, notice of administration business. The Chief Executive has agreed that the seconder of this motion can be changed. Therefore, I call on Councillor Hume to move and Councillor Chatterton to second the motion. Councillor Hume, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Public transport is a vital lifeline for so many of our residents. It's also key to fighting the climate crisis. The IPPR think tank has estimated that another £10 billion extra a year is needed to achieve the government's net zero targets, not cuts like those that were unleashed on the North last month. The tens of billions of pounds of cuts made to the Northern Powerhouse project is a cut to our economic potential here in Oldham and Greater Manchester. The cut is also impact to the services our residents receive. Whilst we would not have had any new stops on this new high-speed line, we would have seen a huge capacity benefit for the existing stations like Greenfield. By moving the fast trains off the existing network and onto these new high-speed ones, capacity is freed up for more local and regional services as well as freight. You basically get 3 lines for the cost of 1. Getting freight off our roads and onto rails also helps reduce the carbon footprint, deliver cleaner air and lower our congestion. We were promised countless times the project would be delivered in full. Sadly, the cheap and nasty alternative put forward of a line between Warrington, Manchester and the Standage Tunnel would do little to improve capacity on the line. Instead, it will create bottlenecking issues where the line meets the current line, and sadly, express services always seem to take precedent over local trains. The government had made promises to increase the number of intercity services, but without a new line, Oldham's rail users will suffer. Since 2010, bus services have been hit hard, with government cuts of up to 40% to funding, leading to over 3,000 routes disappearing. However, here in Greater Manchester, there is some positive news. We are in the process of taking back control of our bus network, a key step towards a London-style public transport system, one where fares are lower, buses go to the places we want and are integrated with the wider network. And to give them their credit, the government have shown support for Andy Burnham's vision for transport in Greater Manchester. And as well as revolutionising our buses, the GMCA is pushing to expand the Metrolink network between Oldham, Rochdale, Hayward and Bury, along with bus corridors between Bury, Oldham and Ashton. Sadly, the government support does not make up for the level of cuts last month and the damage they will do to the economy of the North. And now we have Rishi Sunak demanding an extra 10% cut to rail services across the country. This means hundreds of millions of pounds being taken away from the railway's operating costs next year. A move that will likely result in fewer services and worse stations for passengers. At a time when we should be encouraging people to get out of their cars and onto trams, trains and buses and bikes, this sends the completely wrong message.
Instead of funding tax cuts for internal UK flights, the government should be putting its financial weight into boosting public transport. The climate crisis is not going away, and changing the way we get about is one of the key tools to tackling it. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chatterton to second the motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise to second the motion. 2 years ago, Boris Johnson's own manifesto promised, if this Conservative government is returned to office, we will have an infrastructure revolution for this country. Now is the time to invest in Northern Powerhouse Rail. Madam Mayor, it really has come to something when calling the Prime Minister a liar doesn't even raise eyebrows. But that's what he is. Is he a man that has exploited the financial neglect of the north of England for his own political advantage? And to be fair, he isn't the first one. It was 7 years ago that George Osborne got the train out of Euston and came up here and announced the Northern Hub, another £1 billion infrastructure upgrade in the north of England, calling it the biggest investment in Manchester's railways since the Victorian era. But inevitably, these promises have come to nothing. This isn't because they don't have the money, it is because they choose to spend it elsewhere and they choose to prioritise the south of England over us. Over that time, £7 billion has been spent on the Thames Link programme for north-south travel across London. The budget for Crossrail, a vanity project some might say, has gone to over £18 billion, and the overhaul of London Bridge Station is now standing at over £1 billion. This isn't just about trains, buses and new railway stations. This is fundamentally about the lack of investment in the north of England that would allow us to achieve our economic potential. Transport is the centre point of being able to achieve our ambitions around jobs, homes and economic growth through wider investment. It was 2014 when devolution became a tangible prospect in Greater Manchester. Call it the Northern Hub, the Northern Powerhouse or levelling up. The whole point of devolution was an acceptance by every political party. And, you know, it started off with the lead of the Liberal Democrats going down with Sir Richard Lees as Labour and Susan, who was the Conservative leader in Bolton. And that was an acceptance by all of them that the north of England has not been invested in on an equal basis as the south of England. The government at the time appeared to accept that we hadn't been able to maximise our potential because we hadn't had the funding to do so or the power to make the decisions ourselves. It's also recognised that we knew our areas best and to unlock our economy, that funding and power had to be decentralised from Westminster. By taking away the power from the Transport for the North and moving decisions back to the Department for Transport, this government has demonstrated they do not truly believe devolution to be a viable way forward. We are effectively being treated as second-class citizens who would somehow be pleased for the scraps of funding they throw our way. If this was any other government, then the contempt in which they hold people in the north of England would be surprising, particularly given it was the north of England that gave the Prime Minister his majority in 2019. But this isn't any other government. This is the worst possible government with the worst possible Prime Minister at the worst possible time. Be it COVID parties, sleaze allegations, funding our transport, I hope people are beginning to realise that if we elect a liar, then it shouldn't be surprising when he lies to us over and over again. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chatterton. Please sit down, Mr. Bates, please sit down. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the amendment. Mr. Bates. Mr. Bates, we will have to ask you to sit down, please, and not interrupt again. Thank you. Or we will have to ask you to leave the chamber. We have an amendment to the motion. Councillor Hoban has asked that Councillor Hindle be the mover, and he has notified the Chief Executive of this. So I call on Councillor Hindle to move the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In proposing this amended motion, I would like to state it is not a party political or personal issue with the GM Mayor. I consider the original motion does not need the sentence, the excellent work of the Mayor, Andy Burnham, in taking back control of our buses in Greater Manchester for the council to note. I feel it's too early in the process for the council to be backing the mayor. How embarrassing would it be if at a later stage it turns sour and yet we had backed it? Members who are union members may wish to consider their fellow members within the bus industry that feel like the mayor's plans are far from excellent work. They are more worried about pay, jobs and pensions. Unfortunately, the mayor's track record overseeing GMP going into special measures and his failed promise to resolve homelessness in the area leaves some doubt on the success of his transport policy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Wilkinson to second the amendment, please.
I second the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Move to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
Move to the vote, Madam Mayor.
It's got to be seconded first. It will have to be seconded before we can move any further forward with this.
I did second it, Madam Mayor.
You're just formally seconding?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah.
In terms of the political closure motion, it needs to be seconded.
Yeah.
And votes on to as to whether you feel it's been
Thank you. Councillor Chatterton has moved that we move to the vote, straight to the vote on this. Do we have a seconder for that? Is council agreed that we move to the vote on the... Agreed. Thank you. So, you have a right to reply.
It's all due as to whether you feel it's been sufficiently debated. He's got the right to reply before he goes to the vote.
Councillor Hindle, do you have the opportunity for a right to reply before we vote on the closure motion?
No, just go straight to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so we're now voting on the amendment to the original motion. So do members agree the amendment? Those for? Those against? Thank you. The amendment is not carried, so we revert to the original motion. So does any member wish to speak on the original motion? Councillor Woodvine, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Saddleworth is the most underserved when it comes to transportation, but we need to be pragmatic. The priority should always be at peak times when people need to get to their places of education and employment, even though many are now working from home or in hybrid ways. As my predecessor John Hudson used to say, if you don't use them, you'll lose them. And he was talking about your legs. I wouldn't trust Mr. Burnham to run a bath, let alone build a transportation system, especially if he can't do it with £1 billion. He seems to be pouring money down the drain with his spending on vanity projects and his public relations. The government has been very generous with Labour councils who have the wrong priorities. We don't necessarily need high-speed railways, we need high-standard railways with organised and on-time trains. Altogether, the government have committed £96 billion to their plans for railways in the North and Midlands, and this includes HS2 to Manchester. It also includes the electrification of the Transpennine line through Oldham to Leeds and York. It's a shame that Labour have chosen to create problems where there aren't any, to make a cheap political point. Councillor Hume should stop worrying about Greenfield and concentrate on his own ward, where his absence is widely noticed. I will be voting against this unsubstantiated nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodvine. Councillor Sykes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're going to support this motion, although I want to be clear, Andy Burnham's a nice bloke, but no friend of mine. And my colleagues, in terms of some of the stuff is doing. And if you think bus franchising is taking back control of the buses, you're going to be in for a very, very rude awakening. It is nothing like the regulation we had, which London has never lost. It's better. I voted for it, and I'm proud to say that. But don't kid yourself, it isn't bus regulation. Now let's get to the substantive nature of this, which is predominantly about rail. So you can't, and colleagues need to speak for themselves, but if you think we've had a bit of a bum deal, I have no idea what colleagues are thinking on the other side of the Pennines. Something you're keen sometimes to have links with, because I can tell you colleagues in Bradford, West Yorkshire, Leeds and elsewhere, by the betrayal of SH2, which they were promised, are absolutely gutted. And it's not just taking and not their transport proposals, they're absolutely in tatters. And let's look at our SH2 bit. And I'm a reluctant supporter of SH2 because I am susceptible to the argument we need to get the long service trains and commuter trains off the local network so we can improve the local network. And that's what SH2 is about. I have no interest in making us closer to London or London closer to us. It's about getting that commuter traffic, not the commuter traffic, the intercity stuff onto a separate line. But let's just look how we're doing. So we're coming to Birmingham, and then it's going to come to Crewe, and then it's going to stop. My nightmare scenario is it never gets any farther than Crewe, which then all it does is move that bottleneck on the West Coast line from Crewe and above. But we'll see, and I really hope I'm wrong. You've also got in the background the draft timetable that's been published for local trains, predominantly that Northern and Transpennine run, which will actually be less services, particularly servicing Greenfield and Mills Hill, than we have at the moment. Because the bit that people don't realise, and I'll be honest, I didn't initially, but I do now, is the decision to not put in an independent Transpennine route. So we electrify part of it, then we jump back on the existing line at Marsden. We don't create a battle point, do we? Oh no. Did we not learn that with the M62? And then all the trains carry on at an express speed through that same bottleneck. It's not going to happen. But the other thing, the net impact that's going to happen, is we're going to have years of poorer train services for commuters. Because while the existing line is upgraded, train services will be disrupted or be non-existent, and people will have to be bussed about. And that's the net impact of this. So don't fall for the con that, well, we've not done SH2 over here, but we're going to invest in more local services. The downside of how it's being done, because we're trying to do it on the cheap, is more disruption for commuters for the next 3, 4, 5 or even longer till we get the much promised improvements on the east-west line, if they ever happen. And I personally are very doubtful when you're going to jump them back on the existing track at Marsden, how you're not going to create a bottleneck there, either coming east to west or west to east. So don't fall for it. I won't be here when some of these changes are made, and a number of people in this chamber won't. But I do hope our children and grandchildren remember when this was announced, if it ever happens, how much it fell short of what we've been promised on numerous occasions by numerous people.
Yes,
and some of us have fought very hard to get, and we've been betrayed.
I call on Councillor Sharp to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I want to thank Councillor Hume and Councillor Chatterton for bringing forward this motion, and I do support it. For years, we've seen rising inequality in England, with people in the north denied better wages and opportunities. And of course, creating economic growth is difficult, but the basic recipe is fairly simple. Properly funded schools and colleges, investment in research and innovation, and finally, Madam Mayor, good transport. On the first two, the Conservative government has consistently failed. After more than a decade, spending on education per pupil is still below where it was when they came into office, and almost all of the government's R&D investment goes to the South East. They've shown little interest in fixing this. But on transport, they've been making big promises. George Osborne stood in the Science and Industry Museum all those years ago now talking about the Northern Powerhouse. We were promised a revolution in high-speed rail travel, connecting up the North like never before. They even created transport for the North, so the North could work as one to design a system that would meet the needs of our residents. When it came to it though, Madam Mayor, rather than deliver on their promises, the government chose to shortchange the North once again, and in the process stripped powers and funding from transport for the North to get them out of the way. Madam Mayor, this motion isn't about shiny new stations or shaving a few minutes of journey times. It's about fairness, but even more, it's about opportunity. Proper transport investment would absolutely transform the lives of our children. A young person growing up in Reading knows that London is 41 miles away, but they know they can get there in 22 minutes. A young person in Oldham knows that Leeds is even closer at 37 miles, but instead of 22 minutes, travelling by public transport would take them 1 hour and 48 minutes. That reduces their job prospects and their opportunities to live full lives. If you're a business in Oldham, it also makes reaching your customers a lot harder. And unlike others in this chamber, Madam Mayor, I would like to pay tribute to the work of Mayor Andy Burnham in taking forward bus franchising, which I know will make such a difference. I'd also like to thank Transport for the North and the leaders across the region for their work setting out a clear, deliverable plan. And the difference between combined authority and this is that we have a Conservative leader in Bolton who has joined forces with us and fought for his residents and his constituents to say that what happened a couple of weeks ago was massively unfair. And that's what we should all be learning, that we fight regardless of political party and where our badges, what colour our rosettes are, we fight for our constituents. But there's only so much we can do as local leaders while the government drags its heels and reneges on its promises time and time again. So I've commissioned an independent economic review for Oldham to look at what more we can do to boost growth and increase wealth in our borough. We're fighting with everything that we have to improve the lives of our residents. But while the government makes decisions like this, Madam Mayor, we're fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I don't think I've missed anybody. Councillor Hume, you have the right to reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for the contributions. So in terms of what was said, I mean, I agree with what Councillor Sykes said about it. It is capacity. That is the key thing on this. It's about bringing that capacity there, and like you said, there's nothing about sorting out bottlenecks other than creating more of them. And I would also say that in terms of the terms and conditions around the franchising thing, they are Andy Burnham has moved to ban fire and rehire as a part of the terms and conditions, so I hope that trade unions would support that, and I know that they've been suffering dearly with those kind of fire and rehire things there. So yeah, so I just thank everyone for the thanks for contributions, and yeah, this is, I think it had 80% support the bus regulations. So yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour, please. Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion is carried. The Chief Executive has agreed that the seconder of the next motion can be changed. Therefore, I call on Councillor Moores to move and Councillor Ali to second the motion. Councillor Moores, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to start by saying there is a lot of good work being done in the borough to support children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, otherwise referred to as SEND. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those involved. But SEND services are facing a national crisis because the government are failing to adequately fund these services. This lack of funding is hitting boroughs like Oldham harder than other parts of the country. In the borough, there are 2,634 children and young people who have education, health and care plans. But we have around another 5,000 children and young people with SEND who do not have a plan in place. And demand is increasing rapidly. Between May and September 2020, we saw a 100% increase in the number of requests for education, health and care needs assessments. So why is Oldham being hit so hard? In February 2016, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation produced a report, and I quote, "Poverty is both a cause and an effect of SEND." Nearly 6 years later, and our situation is no better. So much for the government's levelling up agenda. The Joseph Rowntree Trust also highlighted the importance of early years provision for children with SEND and those from low-income families. And as we know, low income is a real issue for many families in the borough. Another real concern to me is the impact of COVID on the under fives, many of whom have not been able to attend settings where they mix with their peers and with adults. This lack of interaction will have impacted on the development of both their social and language skills, and the impact of this mislearning is not yet fully understood. But we can't afford to wait until these children arrive at secondary school to identify the problems. Early intervention is needed to ensure that children who have missed the opportunity to develop these fundamental skills have access to speech and language services that meet their needs. This is another area where the government needs to invest to ensure that resources are available at the right time and in the right place. We all know that many young people with SEND will require care and support for the rest of their life, but with the right support, many others will go on to live independent lives. So what I want is what we should all want, for these young people to be the very best that they can be. Money spent now is an investment in the future, in their future. In June, the County Council Network and the Society of County Treasurers claimed top-tier councils' SEND deficits were set to balloon to an unimaginable 1.3 billion by 2022-23. But it's not just local authorities who struggle. The financial burden on schools is also significant. Schools are required to provide at least the first £6,000 of support for a child with special educational needs and disabilities. And we all know that schools are already struggling in the face of cuts to their general budgets. Even before COVID hit, it was recognised nationally that funding from government had failed to keep pace with rapidly increasing costs. And it is still not keeping pace, leaving big gaps in budgets for both councils and schools. Please support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. I call on Councillor Ali to second, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In seconding this motion, I would like to acknowledge the incredible work done by teachers, parents and carers in supporting and nurturing children with special educational needs and disabilities. Also, my admiration to the brilliant children with SEND who, despite their own challenges, get up each day, get ready, go to school to learn and develop themselves. Parents and carers send the children to school with a great deal of hope. The hope of improving their life chances, the hope that one day their child will become independent, the hope that they can one day find a job and contribute to society. Teachers commit everything to making a difference in the lives of these pupils, often in very limited budgets. The right level of funding, Madam Mayor, can make a huge difference in changing the lives of children towards a better future, and this is why we brought this motion, as we do not want any child to be let down. This funding crisis is not just about local authorities that might end up failing to meet these statutory obligations. It is much more than that. The risk is huge. It has huge consequences on the lives of young people and their prospects for the future. Although the government has acknowledged the issue and increased the funding, but it is nowhere near enough given the scale of the problem. The additional 6.1 million that's been given to Oldham is a welcome. However, it doesn't cover the funding gap that we face. This unprecedented demand for additional support has been caused by several factors. The significant growth in demand has left councils struggling to provide the vital support children with SEND need. Oldham received funding of 33 million in 2019 2019/2020, but spent more than £37 million. In 2020/21, it received 39.1 million and spent more than 40 million. Like most councils, we have overspent the allocated budgets for children with SEND, known as the high needs block. This makes it more difficult to invest in the early support services that can help children and young people integrate into a mainstream education rather than the more expensive specialist support. Schools are also under pressure. Funding pressures on mainstream schools because of inflation, increased teachers' pay, etc., mean that many can't provide support for complex needs. Many children and young people with educational needs and disabilities will miss out on the high quality education they need if councils aren't given adequate funding to manage this unprecedented rise in demand. Therefore, we are calling on the government to invest in SEND services and end the requirement on schools to fund at least the first £6,000. Please consider supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I've not... Councillor Hazel Gloucester. I can only take two. We're very short of time now on this particular item. Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As already stated, SEND issues come in many different forms. You cannot support all children with SEND in the same way, as they are individuals and have individual needs. That is why provision is so expensive to provide. As we have become better at identifying SEND, the demand for provision increases. It is not the case that we now have more children with SEND. It is just that so many children were previously not diagnosed. I wholly support this motion on this area, as this area has been significantly underfunded for far too long. And we need to ensure that all children are supported appropriately and as individuals, so please support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Cheers, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I wasn't going to speak until Councillor Ellis brought this, so I can't resist it. Madam Mayor, let me... It'll do. It'll do. I'll do it in a minute. Madam Mayor, I'm chair of Newby's Multi-Academy Trust that's between Fellsworth and Hollywood. When the school opened, Newby School, get ready for the figures, everybody, on this. When the school opened in 2005, it opened for 180 places. Guess how many kids are there now? 563 as of yesterday. What's that all about? The other school next door to us, because we're part of the academy, and we're a multi-academy trust and we're not sponsored, it's our school, it belongs to us, so you can imagine the pressure in that. Anyway, the school next door to us, Oldham Academy, opened a few years ago with 140 places. Now, all those years later, I think it's 260 something. Madam Mayor, it just shows you the pressure, the hassle, the tidal wave of stuff that's happening that you're thinking, what's that all about? So if schools are experiencing like that, like we are, what's everybody else experiencing? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did well with that, didn't I, in a minute? Didn't I? Did well then.
Yes, yeah, 57 seconds, a record. Councillor Moores, you have right to reply. Thank you.
Yes, very quickly. We heard from the Youth Council about the pressures on young people's mental health. You heard in my answer to Councillor Leach about the pressures on early years. Now it's about SEND. We can't afford to shortchange our children. We need to invest in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour, please. Those against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10, notice of opposition business. I call on Councillor Arnott to move and Councillor Lancaster to second the motion. Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sure, like myself, that several of you in this chamber will have found themselves driving in our borough only to witness the reckless, mindless actions of mainly, but not exclusively, young men driving at high speeds on our roads, overtaking and undertaking, ignoring traffic lights and often appearing to be racing each other. These vehicles have often been modified to increase speed and performance, may well have no valid tax or insurance, and are in some cases stolen. The vehicles often have false plates, are stolen, or they have been illegally altered to evade recognition. rendering speed cameras useless to this hardcore of lawbreakers who have made a conscious and deliberate decision to play fast and loose with their own safety and that of other innocent road users and pedestrians. Given the level of danger that these drivers pose to the public on a regular basis, a speeding fine or even points on their licence is disproportionately minor, given some of them don't even have a licence. Many frontline police officers who deal with traffic collisions know the devastation that it can inflict on victims, but also on frontline police officers mentally. This is why this motion asks the Council to make all and any resources available to the police, whether that is CCTV cameras, buildings and databases, to prevent anyone from being killed by this reckless driving. As councillors, we all receive complaints from residents about this, and I know from residents on Rochdale Road in Royton who are sick of it. By joining up and sharing information, we can help the police trap and catch these criminals. In most cases, this mindless behaviour of these people on the roads is only the tip of the iceberg. Much of their activities are linked to being involved with burglary, narcotics trafficking, getaway driving, carjacking, prostitution and illegal street racing. This month alone, we have seen numerous reports, including a speeding car was stopped and found to have 15 stolen catalytic converters on board, a car found in Oldham town centre which held a cache of weapons, a car that was wrecked in a crash in Chadderton, having been driven at speeds of over 130 miles an hour on the M60. And in Trafford, GMP officers arresting the occupants of a car on suspicion of a number of serious offences, which then led to one of the occupants being further arrested on suspicion of murder. Many of these reckless drivers are under the influence of illegal narcotics, which then fuels their dangerous driving. This motion aims to send out a very clear message from this council that if you choose to recklessly drive at very high speed across our borough, ignore the law and put innocent residents at risk of death or serious injury, or you intend to traffic narcotics or to engage in other antisocial and criminal criminal activity, then working with the police, we will come after you with everything that we have. I'm sorry, the council leader doesn't mind me pinching one of her lines there. I hope she'll forgive me. We will come for you. The police will arrest you. We'll seize your assets and we'll take your vehicles off the road, because that is what the residents of this borough demand, and they have every right to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A call on, sorry, I've lost my place. Councillor Lancaster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would first like to thank my colleague, Councillor Arnott, for bringing this important matter to the attention of Council this evening, and for his work in crafting a motion which, if passed, could tangibly and effectively lessen the scourge of reckless driving on our roads. One of my foremost memories of my later years as a student at Oldham Hume, at around the time I would have been learning to drive, was attending an event at the Middleton Arena. Several parents at that event bravely told their testimonies of being visited at their homes by police officers late at night, being informed that their children had perished due to a collision or a crash on the road, and even being requested to visit crime scenes and mortuaries to identify the victims as their own kin. Behind the statistic that 681 people are killed on average on roads across Greater Manchester every year are broken families and lost livelihoods. Whilst that event has had a lasting impact on myself, unfortunately, too many men of my generation seemingly believe themselves to be indestructible behind the wheel, and for them education simply doesn't wash. We know this sad fact, and we also know that road safety is a key concern of residents of our borough. I am regularly contacted about real road scare stories on Huddersfield Road through Delph and onto Marsden, Oldham Road and Rippenham Road through Denshaw, and countless others, and I'm sure every councillor present can say the same about their own ward casework. The motion sensibly calls for a higher degree of information sharing and the increased deployment of data, for greater resource investment in instituting a crackdown, and also calls for severe punishments to be levied against those who are found to have threatened innocent others, motorists and pedestrians alike, through their own reckless behaviour on our local roads. These resolutions are undoubtedly robust, but no intervention can be too robust when it involves bringing down those who would perpetuate these crimes. I sincerely hope this Council can send the clearest possible signal to our ward constituents this evening that we take road safety and their concerns seriously by voting to approve this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Williams to second an amendment. Councillor Chatterton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise to move the amendment. I doubt there is a single councillor in this chamber who disagrees with the fundamental premise of this motion. Speeding, dangerous drivers, accidents, deaths and damages to vehicle or property affect us all as ward councillors. There will be areas or roads in each of our wards that are magnet for people that think they're racing drivers. This is clearly a minority of the population. I think we all recognise that the majority of drivers in Oldham are responsible drivers. However, that does not stop the problem. Over recent years, Oldham Council, a lot of this in conjunction with Greater Manchester Police, has deployed a combination of evidence-based, data-led education, enforcement and engineering initiatives. This has been successful, and in recent years we've seen a steady decrease in the number of road traffic collisions in line with national targets. We currently undertake a range of initiatives also designed to reduce dangerous driving and teach young people about road safety as part of our road safety education and training, which is delivered in schools and across the local community. However, I think we need to be realistic. Oldham Council can only do so much on its own. Dangerous driving and speeding is a crime, and it is the responsibility of Greater Manchester Police, first and foremost, to deal with it. It's their responsibility to catch them and to take action against these drivers. And we certainly, on this side of the chamber, would welcome a much more proactive approach from Greater Manchester Police in dealing with these drivers, particularly in some of our hotspots. This amendment and the changes to the motion that we have put forward calls for greater clarity from Greater Manchester Police on what their policy is around seizing and crushing vehicles and how many they have done over the past 5 years, but also, most importantly, the funding and resource from Greater Manchester Police that's put into stopping speeding and dangerous driving across Greater Manchester. How is that spread across the 10 authorities, and what is Oldham's share of that funding? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chatterton. I call on Councillor Williams to second the amendment.
Cheers, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Just to add to Amanda's comments, Madam Mayor, in moving the amendment, Greater Manchester Police have now agreed that they're going to double up on the Greater Manchester Road Traffic Policing Unit, so that'll go some way to improve things. Thank you.
To speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's difficult to know whether this is to the amendment or to the motion as a whole, because I think it doesn't quite fall in either, but I think it's really pertinent. One of the things that we notice, and I'm sure as councillors you do, you get residents talking to you about the number of accidents and what has to happen before we can get anything done about it. And one of the issues with this is that the only information, the only thing that is recorded in that sense is what the police call a injury accident. And for every injury accident, there is an estimate of between 0 and 100 other accidents. That's a huge, that's ridiculous that breadth of information is just, yeah, it could be none, it could be 100. And that's information that the council doesn't have and that the police don't have. And that's why it kind of falls slightly outside the amendment and the motion. But I think it's so relevant that we look at that problem and try and identify, and I couldn't, I'm not sure how to get that into the motion, but I think something separately needs to be done, because until you start identifying that information, trying to address what you're doing in terms of going after the criminals, like that baseline of information we don't have as the council or as the GMP. So I'm not going to stand in support of them. I think both of them have strengths and are both really important. But I think there is more that we need to do outside the scope of this that is really important and will affect what we agreed here. So I really think I just wanted to bring that to people's attention, that lack of information is there, and we need to do something about that to make this effective. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hoban, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a little confused on the amendment, really, because Councillor Chatterton said about helping the police, and then she's kind of thrown the police under the bus and said, you know, it's up to them to do all the work. And I don't understand, removing the bullet points, as the amendment asks, isn't that just watering it down and making it a bit wishy-washy? We can get the information as well as come down hard, and surely to work with GMP and give them all the resources that we can as a council and give them all the reports and give them access to everything will only help the case rather than diminish the case. So I don't understand why we would vote for an amendment that takes the teeth out of the argument and makes it a bit, oh, you know, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. We want to help the police, but we don't really want to help the police and give them access. It just doesn't make sense to me. So if we can get clarity on that, I'd be grateful. But for me, the amendment just takes away the strength that's needed in the original motion. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I suppose I kind of agree across the board with lots of there's lots in the amendment that I actually like and wish I could support, and I think that the other side of the argument has also been brought forward, and the gist of this, the whole gist of the original motion was the council itself puts any and every available asset that it possibly can to support the police in chasing down this quite small band of people who aren't just doing 5 or 6, 7 miles an hour over the limit. Well, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but a hardcore of people who whiz past you at 90 miles an hour. And I say, I'm disappointed that I can't support fully Councillor Chatterton's amendment, because I like it and I like lots in it. But I think I have to agree with it does slightly water down the teeth of the original motion. But thank you for everybody else's comment and input. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Does Councillor Chatterton wish to reply?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just for a point of clarity. So in terms of the bullet points that have been removed, I removed them because they're not relevant, or we already do that. So any information that GMP want from us in terms of accidents, highway safety, highways engineering, that cuts across the whole of the town, we already offer that. So that's the reason of not taking it out. I know GMP do seize and crush vehicles, so they already do that. So that's why I've taken that out. What I'm unclear about is the extent to which it's done, and the extent to which it's done in Oldham, and that's why I've asked for greater clarity around that. And I think that bit pretty much sums it up, to be honest. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So, does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour, please. Those against the amendment? Any abstentions? The amendment is carried. So does any member wish to speak on the motion as amended? Councillor Chris Gloucester, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I rise to speak on the motion, which is now amended. I don't have to cast my mind back too far to the last time I spoke on this type of issue in this chamber. Only 2 weeks ago, in fact, when I challenged the Chief Constable of GMP during his public accountability meeting and asked for a commitment to reversing the cuts to the number of roads policing officers. That commitment was forthcoming when he announced roads policing staff would be doubled from 40 to 80 officers. You can have as much technology as you like, but the best placed people to deal with this type of issue is a highly trained roads policing officer on the ground who can deal with what they see in front of them. And I applaud the Chief Constable, or in fact the Deputy Chief Constable, Terry Woods, who has a roads policing background from PC to Inspector and understands the issues better than most and is the driver for this increase. Unlicensed drivers and uninsured drivers are a burden on society, and in particular a burden on Oldham. Many fail to stop collisions, both minor, serious and fatal in nature, are likely to feature an unlicensed or an uninsured driver. ANPR is a virtual police officer that can flag instantly an uninsured vehicle and numerous other intelligence aspects. And I know if GMP stop one as a result
of an ANPR check, they will seize that vehicle. Similarly, they'll seize the vehicle of unlicensed drivers. And legislation exists, and has been around for quite a while, where vehicles that are being used antisocially can also be seized if, within a 12-month period, having been in receipt of a warning, it then gets taken off them. And it is a tool that GMP have used for a long while. I'm immensely proud that GMP utilised the ANPR cameras that Oldham Liberal Democrat councillors funded for Sean Crompton, that have seen numerous arrests for travelling offenders in stolen vehicles coming to Sean Crompton to commit crime, who otherwise would likely have gone undetected, committed their crime and left the way they came. And the knock-on benefit for being more visible is, that there's more visible policing in Sean Crompton. Speed cameras have also been a bone of contention for Liberal Democrats, and no doubt councillors of all parties over the last few years will have realised that simply most don't seem to work. What's well less known is that the majority of these cameras are wet film cameras, and they're no longer supported. GMP has an entirely digital approach to this type of enforcement. However, the fault lies not with GMP, it's with the owners of the cameras, who are in fact the council, served by the Greater Manchester Transport Committee. Again, Liberal Democrats have not sat on their hands with this issue, and I can state that with thanks to the tireless campaigning by my colleague, Councillor Howard Sykes, in his position as a member of the Greater Manchester Transport Committee, that this body have now agreed to funding the digitisation of, as I understand, all wet film cameras by April 2022. Liberal Democrat councillors have not been shy at bringing motions to council to reduce death and injury on our roads, be that a motion to reduce drink drive limit to European and Scottish limits, increase road policing officers, or a borough-wide scheme of 20 is plenty. The former leader of the Conservative group on Oldham Council has gone on record only as early as last year describing a motion to reduce speed limits on residential roads as, in his words, a load of crap and unnecessary. Thank you. Despite evidence showing such measures would reduce collisions by 20%. Fortunately, the majority of councillors didn't agree, and it's gone to overview and scrutiny. Liberal Democrats believe in education, engineering and enforcement as long-held characteristics of making our roads safer, and on that basis, Madam Mayor, we support the motion as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Councillor Woodvine, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very emotive motion, which I wholeheartedly support. We seem to hear of deaths due to dangerous driving all the time as councillors, and I'm sure this is as true across the borough as it is in Saddleworth. Due to the semi-rurality of our villages, we do attract crime, especially that which is acquisitive, with the theft of cars being commonplace. People work hard and deserve to bear the fruits of their labour, without selfish individuals stealing their private property. Those same people have been very proactive in creating crime watch networks across the area and are supported by the police in doing so. As the Highways Authority, there is also a proactivity towards introducing safety measures here, and this is appreciated by my colleagues and me. With the new leadership at GMP and intervention from our government, I am positive about the future of policing in Oldham. I do hope the Council will look at building closer relationships with our neighbouring boroughs, including Kirklees and Calderdale, as there are major routes which cross over from Saddleworth into those areas. This allows criminals to move around over the moors unnoticed. This sort of cross-region cooperation with West Yorkshire is certainly something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Briefly, can I thank Councillor Gloucester and Councillor Woodvine for their considered and positive input, and can I thank Councillor Chatterton for explaining the rationale behind some of the meat of the amendment. I would say I would have been happier if this went to a vote unamended, but equally I'm not going to lose a great deal of sleep where it goes to a vote as an amended motion. So thank you for contributions from everybody, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So does Council agree the motion as amended? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? That motion as amended is carried. We're very short on time for the rest of this section of the agenda. We've got about 10 minutes left on opposition business. So do councillors wish to go straight to formal moving and seconding and to the vote? Yeah. Yeah, we can take Councillor Al-Hamdani's and see where we get to with that one. Okay, so I call on Councillor Hamdani to move and Councillor Williams to second the second motion.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, am I permitted to speak as well? Yes, it wasn't quite clear. I will
Just be conscious that we are getting very close to the end of this section. Thank you.
I will move quickly. It's a very simple motion. As some of you will have noticed, since the motion was written, the proposals have come out from the fan-led review, and they are very good. And you can put this on the record. It might pain me a little. Well done, Conservative MP Tracy Crouch. Might not hear that again. It's really important because football clubs are such a part of the community and are the difference that it makes to not just a town but individuals. And I'm going to tell a short story and I'll sit down. Steve, story and sit down. I'll try and follow your lead. This is about the father of a friend of mine, Gareth, who has been a Bury fan for all of his life. And he's in his 80s now. And a couple of years ago, as you know, Bury were one of the clubs that have been hit and collapsed. And his one sort of big social thing was going to the football. Doesn't have a lot of friends that he talks to. His wife died a few years ago. This is his thing, where he gets out of the house, he speaks to people, he gets on with his life, and it just makes such a difference. And when the club collapsed partway through the season, and all of a sudden that's gone out of his life, and the thing that has all been there throughout his whole life is gone, and that's his one outlet. And that's the difference that a club being part of the community makes to every individual who is part of that. And the whole point of this, the fair game and the fan-led review, is to look at the way that the game is structured and to just stop that happening again, because it's far too easy for it to happen. And you look at the carelessness with which Bury was bought and run, and it was just careless. You know, there was a succession of failures in terms of how the club was sold, how it was moved on, the way in which it was run, and the failure of governance to oversee this and let down all of those people. And it is a different thing to a business. You know, people talk a lot about football being a business. It's not a business, because it's at the heart of the community in a way that no other business is. So there's 48 recommendations. There's so many recommendations, and they are all good. And as a City fan, who gets the benefit of being at the top end of this pyramid, and actually, it's the Premier League who are complaining about this. No, I'm sorry, it's not about. I don't want City to benefit from this. Every other team needs to get the benefit of changing the governance so that all the teams down the pyramid are supported in the way that they need to be, because that's the only way that all these clubs will survive, and that towns like Oldham have the club that they deserve at the heart of it. And come on, push the boundary, and the foundation, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Williamson. Second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 1895, a club was founded called Thames Ironworks and reformed in 1900 as West Ham United. They moved to the Bowling Ground in 1904, which remained their home ground for more than a century until 2016. The team initially competed in the Southern League and Western League before joining the Football League in 1918. We've had many ups and downs, and if it wasn't for the strength of the fans, we wouldn't be the club that is 126 years old. COVID has devastated the finances of so many lower league clubs and left dozens on the brink of survival. Yet the game remains the richest sport in the UK. It is time to reboot the game and bring together value-driven clubs to call for change. Football clubs, whether they're in the Premier League or the lower leagues, play a critical social, civic and cultural role in their local communities. They need to be protected, sometimes from their owners, who are, after all, simply the current custodians of a community asset. Football has failed to regulate itself effectively. Frequently, bad management has gone unnoticed or ignored. Clubs are allowed to run unsustainable, putting at a risk at all the history, heritage and economic benefit they bring to an area, often in pursuit of shortened gains. Concerns around the FA and its ability to govern have also been previously raised in Parliament, and change has been slow. To ensure that football is regulated effectively, an independent regulator should be created and given statutory powers to ensure that football clubs are operated in a sustainable way and there are safeguards around their key heritage assets. Let's redistribute the parachute payments and give it to the clubs that are well run. Let's bring in a system that protects the club's crown jewels, the badge, the name, the nickname, the colours, its location. We want our clubs to be there for the long haul. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Just time for some brief debate. Councillor Byrne.
Oh, sorry, it is now. I want to support this because I can remember the days when Latics, the whole town emptied for the FA Cup, when they went to Wembley, and a football club, the town and the football club almost reflect one another. Towns are successful where their football club is successful, and we cannot let this happen to, as Councillor Al-Hadami said, like Bury. We must make every effort. I still want my name on that seat at Boundary Park. And might seem strange me speaking on football, but yes. And I think that if the team is successful, so will the town be. And that's what I want to happen, and I support this, especially as Tracy Crouch is doing it.
Thanks, Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will have to move to Councillor Al-Hamdani now. Do you wish to reply?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
You said everything. Thank you. Does Council agree the motion? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. So again, through time, the remaining motions, motion 3, 4 and 5, we will have to move to just formal proposing and seconding. Is that okay? Thank you. So motion 3, I call on Councillor Woodvine to move and Councillor Byrne to second. Councillor Woodvine.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We do have an amendment to this motion, so I call on Councillor Jabbar to move the amendment.
Moved, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Roberts to second the amendment.
Second, Madam Mayor.
There's nothing really to reply to, but do you want to add a few words, Councillor Woodvine?
I could, but I won't.
Thank you. Does Councillor Jabbar wish to have reply.
The reason why we amended it makes it better, Madam Mayor, and hopefully we can have everybody's support to this important agenda. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? So, thank you. The amendment is carried. Does Councillor Woodvine wish to reply? So, does Council agree the motion as amended? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? So the motion as amended is agreed. Motion 4, I call on Councillor Gloucester to move. Sorry, Councillor Hazel Gloucester.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Murphy to second the motion. Thank you. Does Councillor Hazel Gloucester wish to just add anything? Briefly.
No, Madam Mayor, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
We need an increase in that warm homes discount.
Thank you. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. And that brings us to the end of that section of the agenda. So we'll move to item 11, COVID response update, and I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Chowan to second the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to speak long, but I do want to, in moving this report, I think it's really important to thank local health and council staff and the voluntary sector, which will be moving heaven and earth to meet the government's vaccine promises at a time when the most need a break. Following nearly 2 years of the pandemic response, there's going to be over 400,000 NHS workers and our adult and social care workers that will continue to be working through Christmas, and we have to acknowledge the work of the community and the voluntary sector who will not be spending Christmas or having that break the way the rest of us or the way they had anticipated, and I'd like to just acknowledge that in moving this report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I've had advance notice of questions, and I call on Councillor Sykes. Oh, sorry. God. Sorry, moving on too fast. Sorry,
yeah,
Councillor
apologies,
Shaw.
Madam Mayor. I can't miss opportunity for my speech. I know members are tired, but I'm sure it's such an important topic that everyone would like to know what's been going on and what's going on in the country. So, starting nationally, I'm sure that we all appreciate and understand fully that we got the new variant of Omicron, which is spreading very, very fast, and new emergencies measures have been put in place to cope with what we think that will help us to cope with the new measures. Just give you an example, yesterday, 14th of December, we had 59,000 new cases nationally positive of COVID, and around 150 people died yesterday within 28 days of being diagnosed COVID. On 10th December, 793 people were admitted and ventilated in England with coronavirus. And on 13th of December, and the numbers carry on. And Madam Mayor, the reason I'm mentioning this number because we might like to think that it's over. It's not over. Unfortunately, coronavirus is still around. I met with our party leader last week and with other local authority leaders, and we agreed that COVID vaccination rollout program is the right thing to do because it's based on scientific, and we would not play politics with that, and we will fully support them within the Labour administrations and elsewhere as well. Madam Mayor, if I compare this week with the last year, similar week, so in week 51 last year, we had number of deaths were around 13,000. So week 51, number of deaths reached to the 13,000, and approximately 1 in 80 people were positive with COVID infection. Does anyone else remember what else happened Christmas time last year? Oh, well, that's right. So that was a time when we were having the parties in Downing Street as well. and we were leaving from the back door. So I think it's important to remember when all of us were working really hard, including my colleagues and other public service servants, some were having parties. I hope that they will learn the lessons, as it's important to learn the lessons and not have parties this year. Yeah. But anyway, moving on from there. So we, next 2 weeks, whole of NHS has been asked to prioritize booster vaccination. And this is the only sort of like hope to prevent the spread of new variant of coronavirus. And this is, Madam Mayor, serious matter, joke apart. And that's why everything literally needs to be thrown on that, to that extent where we have asked our colleagues, nationally been asked and locally been asked to step down loads of things to prevent death and preserve life, because we know that's the only game in the town at the moment which can help us to preserve the life. So I will urge my colleagues across the benches to come together, and let's not play politics on that, because this is about the lives of our residents. I can joke and mess about with that, but when it comes to this, I'm serious. Let's come and work together and play your role. But also remember, as Councillor Shah said, that thousands of, including myself, actually working on shop floor on Christmas and Boxing Day and New Year. So your little kindness, little words of sympathy, volunteering will help actually and encourage and boost the morale of those people. And that's across the benches as well. And even, you know, your kind word will make a difference to those people who are not raising the glass and not having mince pie at home, but actually trying to protect the life of our residents. So our focus remains on vaccination and booster. Unfortunately, that does mean that you will see less routine care, or no routine care actually, if I'm being totally honest. And I think that's another thing we need to talk about as a politician, to have honest conversation with public, that you would not get your routine care, you will get urgent care and emergency care, because if you try to provide the routine care, there are chances that actually we will fail to protect lives. That also means that you will have less face-to-face appointments, because unfortunately, I don't want to go into the history 10 years backwards, but that means that we don't have a staff. It's the same staff who's going to vaccinate you and who's going to sort of like look after you in the surgeries and in hospital. You will have still cancellation of the appointments in hospital and in primary care, and that's the honest truth. But it is also honest truth that if we don't do anything, that means unfortunately more people will get infected. Unfortunately, our hospitals will struggle to cope, and also unfortunately there's a high risk of people dying. In context of Oldham, we need to vaccinate over 80,000, around 80,000 adults by the end of December. It's not easy task, even if you throw everything on it. And I have to say again, thank you to our NHS council colleagues and voluntary sector who are playing who played actually a significant role over the last 2 years, but they still continue to play a significant role. We're even seeking help from Army and St. John Ambulance, literally knocking on every door we can to make sure that we try our best to protect and preserve the life. It is the right thing to do, and it is our moral responsibility to do that as well. So in Oldham context, again, our response is well established. We currently quite low, luckily, with infection rates in Oldham compared to the rest of the Greater Manchester and actually England, but that doesn't mean the rates can't go up high and would not go high, especially the festive season coming, Christmas coming. Again, it's important really that we take appropriate measure. We have appropriate testing sites all across Oldham. There's plenty of access available. I personally had 4 PCR tests this week for one reason or another reason. Thanks to our services, I managed to get those tests and managed to get timely response as well. And it's important that if we have doubt, get it tested, because that's another thing which will help us to protect and preserve the lives of our residents. We also working constantly with our residents using the various communication method, including online, Facebook, Twitter, etc., to educate our residents and also help them wherever we can. So I formally move this report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, if I have not answered your question already, please feel free to ask but keep in mind that it's not live meeting, so.
Thank you.
That's a joke.
I've had advance notice of questions. I call on Councillor Sykes to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support the government's vaccination programme, and in particular its booster vaccination programme. However, I'm really concerned by the recently announced acceleration of the booster programme will actually have a devastating impact on other NHS preventative services and treatments. When even the Prime Minister says some of these will be cancelled, delayed or need to be rescheduled, it makes me very worried. As we all know, Oldham's population is not a healthy one. Delays in such services will impact on the life expectancy of many of our citizens and have a massive impact on tens of thousands of others. What steps can we take, and by we I mean the Council, and our health partners to try and reduce this risk for our residents? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Choran.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I fully share your concerns and understand anxieties and reality actually is not anxieties. That will happen. As said previously, unfortunately, we have to make choices. The choices is, do we try to control the infection, spread of infection, or do we carry on doing our routine stuff? Which measure will help us to protect the life better? No, unfortunately, there are historic reasons. I can go through those. I mean, you know more than me probably. The reason why we don't live longer, why someone in Saddleworth lives longer than somewhere in Alexandra, etc., etc. Unfortunately, those health inequalities would not be corrected within weeks and months. However, I think that's probably one of the only occasions where I agree with Prime Minister that this time, the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's really, really crucial to get the booster, get people vaccinated, and literally throw everything on it. And the honest answer is yes, care will be affected, but routine care will be affected. But if you balance it out, I hope and sincerely hope that this will help us to protect and preserve the life, and we don't end up in the situation where we were before 2 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Calling Councillor Williamson to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the unprecedented level of remote learning over the last 18 months due to COVID-19, it is clear that as we approach exam season in the new year that pupils will be at a disadvantage to their former peers in relation to learning and particular relevant subject knowledge. Is the Cabinet member aware of any steps that have been taken to ensure that these pupils are not disadvantaged for life in relation to ensuring they are exam ready?
Councillor Choran.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Absolutely. Again, we need to make sure that sort of like recover from the damage being done already, but also make sure that we don't damage their education more. Again, that's why vaccination, etc., is important. I can obviously send you the detailed response, but we have a catch-up premier funding for schools. We have early language intervention program, national tutoring program for age 5 to 19, holiday education, summer schools, online curriculum resources, and mental health and well-being support, holiday activities and food, sport for people with SEN. And I'm sincerely hoping that all this collectively will help them to catch up as best as they can. But I think it's working on sort of like recovery, but also working on prevention at the same time to make sure that in the future they can still go to school after Christmas and etc. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Councillor Hazel Gloucester to ask a question, please.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I withdraw the question, please? Circumstances have changed over the last couple of days. Thank you.
Is it me? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to obviously ask the relevant Cabinet member the question. I know he tried to preempt and answer the question previously during his speech, but this is still being recorded and our residents want to hear the questions. So it's in regards to the call for more face-to-face GP appointments, and it's given the unprecedented levels of remote calls and very few face-to-face appointments, which is a bit like getting the lottery. Can the Cabinet member now reassure residents of Oldham that more face-to-face appointments with their GPs are now being offered to residents, especially those, and considering the fact we've just not long had a motion regarding SEND, but those also with blind, hearing impaired and those who struggle to communicate through telephony or online systems, as this would be crucial to help ease pressures with our hospital colleagues during winter period. So thank you very much to the relevant.
Councillor Chauhan.
Thank you very much. I would answer for your card, and I think first of all there are general practices regulated by some national policies, not by Oldham Council. However, I can confirm that face-to-face appointment in Greater Manchester are up to 60% of pre-pandemic levels and still rising. Probably they will go down over the next few weeks because of all the reasons I outlined. I think it should be about the right care which is negotiated with the patient, what suits them well. Some people actually would say face-to-face is not needed, we want a different appointment. So I think the point we should be trying to make is saying, has the patient choice been respected, and is it being negotiated, and is it a mutual shared decision being made between the patient, resident and the clinician? What is the best way of treating that resident? But I can confirm that numbers have gone up to 60% pre-pandemic, and hopefully they will go up again after Christmas once they are off from GPs or from booster vaccination program.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It does occur to me that, well, especially today when we receive the figures, the data, that if you look at the wards or the percentages that have had their first COVID injection, that some wards are much higher than other wards. And it did occur to me that maybe these wards where it's low are where people don't have cars, where they can't easily get to centres. It may be something that you've already considered, but I did wonder what we do about that. I know we've had pop-up injection places, but if you look at today's figures that have been sent and you see who's got the highest, yes, they're in a ward where they've nearly all got cars or can be taken, but as you go down the list, it is probably people who are not able, not that they don't want to be vaccinated, but perhaps are not able to get to the vaccination centre. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Chauhan.
I will get you to the detailed response on that, but just sort of like off the hook. When vaccination originally started and people were talking about vaccination hesitancy, I was the first one to talk about the vaccination accessibility. And I said, actually, let's make sure, first of all, it's accessible before we say that people are hesitant to have. And it did work, and this council actually did quite a lot of remarkable work, which was nationally recognized successfully, where we went door to door, street to street. We opened up various centers, pop-up clinics, etc., targeted the areas based on where the infection rates were high, controlled those. And if you keep that in mind, where we were 2 years ago and where we are now, sort of like one of the lowest in England and one of the lowest in Greater Manchester, so we must have done something right. Those clinics are still open, so we still have pharmacists delivering the vaccination, we still have community centers delivering the vaccination. I'm not going to pretend that it's perfect, but that's why we are community leaders, and if you have a better sort of like you will have better intelligence in your areas. If you have intelligence saying, we got this particular issue here, please come and speak to me, and that's why we are here. It's not about party politics. That's where I started from. It's saying actually making sure that residents have the accessibility, and if there is an issue about accessibility, we will do everything possible to remove that restriction and make sure that our residents, irrespective of who they voted for, get the right care. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Apologies, Councillor Hazel-Gloucester, I leapfrogged your second question. Thank you.
Don't worry, because I had forgotten as well that I had to. I'm just wondering if the relevant Cabinet member can assure the people of Oldham that much needed access to dentistry and orthodontics appointments will not be limited even if further restrictions apply. Obviously we know how desperate the dentistry situation is, and you know some people are trying to get appointments and can't get them for over 12 months away. Thank you.
Councillor Chowan.
Again, I share your concern as a councillor. Most of my casework was used to be bin collection and etc. No, it is about the appointments, including dentist appointments things. Unfortunately, that's directly commissioned by NHS England. I have been lobbying over the last 12 months to Greater Manchester to say how do we increase the access of dentistry access for our residents. Even though we don't have a direct influence, but we will carry on speaking up for it and lobbying at the right places to make sure that our residents get the right care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I still note the number of people, especially in shops, who do not wear the face mask. I know not everybody can do, but there's still a lot of people who simply do not want to wear a face mask. And these tend to be the people who refuse to believe that this virus is real and a danger. We've seen over the last weekend the Prime Minister and the Labour leader on TV, and this is a concerted effort to encourage people to get the jab. What more can we do to convince those that can do to take the jab, and that we're all in this situation together?
Councillor Chowan.
Thank you, and Councillor, I really appreciate the spirit of being together, especially on this matter. I think the number of things we can do. So as a council, we're increasing the police patrol, marshals. I think there are community champions, the voluntary sector doing a lot of work. I personally do not believe that you can force people to do things. I think it's addressing those concerns, and that's where our campaigns with the social media and etc. come in place. But I think us collectively, who has better access to the residents than us? So what we have done, let's start from us, what we have done to go out and actually speak to our residents and even hand out the leaflet in our local shopping area and say, please wear this mask, it will help you. So it's that education element is really important, and I think that's where our collective effort comes in, to come out and actually just put real physical effort in and say, here we go, we're supporting this, we're coming out, we're educating people, while at the same time it's been reinforced by council patrolling and police as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hoban, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not a question, it's just something that I felt the need to say. I know Councillor Chowan has worked very hard over the last 2 years while we've been battling this, and it's great that we have a presence of a medical expert to help us with. And I'd just like to say it's great to have a clear message from somebody rather than the often confused, muddied waters, and I appreciate all the work that you've done and the messages that you're getting across. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At least I've been appreciated by one person.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions on that. Does Council note the report? Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Sykes to second the update on actions from Council. Councillor Shah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? No. Does the mover wish to reply? Nothing to reply to. No, she's not even concentrating. So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 13, public speaking at traffic regulation order panel. Calling Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sheldon. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Gloucester.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. As a veteran of the TRO panel, I'll say this is something that we have done informally for several years, and by formalising this arrangement, it will just make this council, particularly around this area, more transparent, and it's welcomed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hoban. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been up and down more than anything tonight. I don't know what's wrong with me. It was just a general question. To make us an open and transparent council, I just wondered if there was any other panels that we need to do this with. Is there any other outstanding things that we need to bring to council so that we're involving the public with as many panels as possible? Thanks.
Thank you. That can be dealt with in the right to reply. So, okay. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was chuffed to death when I saw this coming to the council for noting. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, people might look at this and think traffic regulation order panel. That sounds really boring, but it's one of the most interesting panels that I think I've ever sat on. The staff on there, Gary, Sarah, and Daryl. Alan and a few of the other officers that have attended it have taught me so much about some of the problematic parking issues and how to address them, and it really is good stuff that you can feed this back to residents. As Chris has already mentioned, we spoke about this quite a lot when I was, well, I'm still a sub now, but as a previous member, because I was astonished that members of the public wasn't allowed to speak at this. I mean, somebody's putting prospectively double yellow lines outside your house. You want to be able to say something, and that wasn't the case. Now, luckily, we've had some really good chairs. Steve Bashforth was a fantastic chair. Elaine's been great, and I think, Peter, you're running it now. And they've all allowed ward members to speak. And it's a very relaxed committee, but I think we all work together on it and find some solutions. I mean, when it comes to parking, you're never going to find that perfect magic answer. But I think on this panel, we all work together. But I'm really pleased that it's on there, and I think it gives residents that reassurance that they can speak, because I think if they did their homework, they looked in that document and there was no option to speak. But like I say, the chairs of previous committees and the ones now allow that to happen. So I'm really pleased it's been agreed and what have you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, do you wish to reply?
In response to Councillor Holbin's question, I think it's a good suggestion. We'll certainly review it.
Thank you very much. So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 14, 2020 to 21 annual statement of accounts. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, and Councillor Shah to second.
In moving the report, Madam Mayor, I'd like to inform the Chamber that Oldham was in the only 9% of the local authority who completed their accounts for last year by the statutory deadline. So I think our congratulations due to our Finance Director and the team for all the brilliant work she does. With that, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Does anybody want to speak? Anyone wish to speak?
In seconding the report, I think Councillor Jabbar would be really, really happy if I was to acknowledge him as the Cabinet member who ensured that happened. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, yes. Thank you. Okay, so does the mover wish to add any more to reply? Or acknowledge the thanks or anything? Thank you. So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 15, procurement of the Council's external auditors 2023 to 24 to 2027-28. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Shah to second. Councillor Jabbar.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Thank you. Does the mover wish to add anything, say anything? No.
No, Madam Mayor.
So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 16, Municipal Calendar 2022 to 23. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Sykes to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sykes. Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to say anything?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 17, Council Gambling Policy Review. I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Shah to second.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to say anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 18, Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Report 2021 to 22. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Shah to second the report.
Moved, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Thank you. Does Council agree? Does the mover wish to say anything? Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 19, Adoption of the Public Health Act 1925 concerning naming of streets. I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Shah to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to say anything? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Agreed. Before we just close the business, I'd like to record our thanks to the Civic Centre team for making us feel as safe as we possibly can be tonight. An awful lot of work has gone into this, so I'd like our thanks to be passed on to them. They've all disappeared, they were here earlier. And to wish everybody celebrating a very joyful and happy Christmas, and to everybody a very peaceful, healthy and safe New Year. And that concludes the business for the evening. Thank you.
You did a fantastic job.
That's what happens when I move.